clips. And remember, citizens, always subscribe. Hit the notification bell as well. And $19.95 plus shipping and handling will keep you out of hell. Hello, righty boob tubes, another one of clips. Welcome to the Daily PoliTITS, or the semi-Daily PoliTITS. But watching the news constantly can be a big bit depressing. And it's always good to take a wee break, you know. And sometimes I'm prone to falling into the bottom of a bottle, so. Anywho, welcome to the Daily PoliTITS. Daily PoliTITS. If you like politics but are sick of the tits, then tune into the Daily PoliTITS for your fix. So the format, very simple. Compare notes amongst the English talking news holes around the world. So the BBC's, the Sky News, the Al Jazeera, the RTs, the Press TVs, the Frogs and the Krauts, the GB News, because Prince Harry. It's funny hearing the tabloid press slag him off while they're talking about and trying to justify the phone hacking and all that. It's hilarious, man. I listen to a bit of talk radio for my sins, or talk whatever they fucking call it nowadays. Talk in the bin. Now, this guy will sit there and slag off the BBC left, right and centre. It's because they snubbed him for a job. He used to work for the BBC. He went for the top job at Newsnight question time. They knocked him back. Now he's in the commercial sector slagging off the BBC. But nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. Just don't think about why the commercial elements are constantly demonising Prince Harry and the BBC. Don't even engage your fucking brain. Just go, Prince Harry's woke. And then, I mean, the easiest way to get to somebody is to go after his wife. So if you wonder why his wife is in the crosshairs and he's in the crosshairs, it's because he's has went after the tabloid press for all their phone hacking scumbaggery, and they're fighting back. Because I think he came out and said that the tabloid press had a lot to do, and we'll have a look at the Yankee Doodle dandies. Because surely they're going to be touching on the old Biden stuff. That's us at the top of the hour, so I'm going to go and grab RT at the top of the hour.
Warmly welcomed and highly condemned as thousands of Americans protest against Netanyahu's stateside visit, as Congress gives a round of applause after the Prime Minister asks for more bombs to be shipped overseas.
I too appeal to America. Give us the tools faster and we'll finish the job faster.
And the World Health Organization sounding the alarm of an epidemic outbreak in Gaza. Garbage and sewage fill the streets and disease is spreading like wildfire.
All by design.
And so with all the updates to our top stories and our guests standing by, it's a full set of your headlines ready to roll right here on RT. So, Joe Biden has succumbed. In a speech reminiscent of a last day in office, the 46th president of the United States
Joe.
tried to explain his bow from power. He admitted the reality that America needs somebody else to lead the nation.
I believe my record as president, my leadership in the world, my vision for America's future, all merited a second term. But nothing can come in the way of saving our democracy. That includes personal ambition. So I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation. That's the best way to unite our nation. You know, there is a time and a place for long years of experience in public life. But there's also a time and a place for new voices, fresh voices.
See if he was that coherent during the fucking debate. You know, maybe if they jacked him up a bit more. I think he was still, like, call me a conspiratard, because I am. But I think he was brought down from within inside the party. Because they obviously didn't jag him up and jack him up before that fucking debate. Listen to him here, man. Sounds coherent.
Yes, younger voices.
Earlier, my colleague Mike Okwache discussed Biden's speech and the whirlpool of changes to the Democratic ticket with the founder of Truth in the Media Project, Ben Swann.
I think that Biden pretty much said it all in his remarks. He did not want to
Truth
drop out.
Media
He says, I
founder.
believe that I have the ability.
He's a fucking
I have the
podcaster.
vision,
He's an
I have the
Alex
plan
Jones,
to continue on
Dangleberry
as
gremlin,
president and to
man.
run for re-election.
Without
But
that,
I'm
look,
going to
he's
step
got his
aside because he
microphone
says
and all
nothing
that.
can stand in the way of saving our democracy
I
or
can't
protecting our
just let
democracy.
people
Well,
hear
what does
what
that
I'm
mean?
saying
It
and
means
then
I've
show
been
my big
told
dick
I'm not
microphone.
allowed to run, and if I do, ultimately I'll
Fucking
lose.
pathetic,
In his
man.
speech, Biden placed a special emphasis on passing the
Honestly,
torch
I think
to
it's small
younger
dick syndrome,
or
man.
young
Like, yeah,
generation,
look,
a
big
new
man
voices, as the
microphone
case may
is,
be,
man. I'm
in
like
US
Joe
leadership.
Rogan here,
Now,
man.
Is Kamala Harris indeed a
Mate,
representative
you're a
of
dude
that
with a
new
fucking
voice
webcam.
in
Your
politics and
webcam probably
leadership?
has a
The
mic
problem
that will
with
do the
Biden
exact same
and the problem
job.
for Harris is that they have the same record in office over the last 4 years. So it's been under the Biden administration that the economy's had the problems it's had. Well, Harris is a part of that. The number one issue
She's
among voters
hilarious,
right
that
now
old
is
woman,
not just
actually, man.
economy, but it's also the border and immigration.
think she's
Kamala
a
Harris
Jewess.
was the
She's
border
fucking
czar,
hilarious.
and it was under her watch that 7.6 million people entered the country illegally. In Harris's case, she has the same record that Biden has, and it's one that's going to be tough to defend.
Now, Trump has said that the Democratic Party is acting undemocratically as he attempts to swap Biden with Kamala Harris.
But really, what happened was the leaders of the Democrat Party, in a very undemocratic move, the bosses, they said, either you get out or we're going to throw you out using the 25th Amendment. That's
Trump
what happened.
is on the money.
He
I
didn't
was
want to
right
get out, but they
myself.
told him,
man.
"You're
He
getting
took
out."
out from within.
They said, you're getting out.
In the Democratic primary, because Biden was running, there
Look
was
at
no
my
actual
mic,
primary
bro.
held. No
Yeah.
debates were held. The
I
DNC
got
said
a
we
big
won't
mic,
hold debates
bro.
because we
It's
have
on
an
the
incumbent
screen,
president.
you know,
The
like Joe
problem
Rogan.
is, after those primary contests were then held and before the nomination, it is in that small window that the Democrats removed or forced Biden out. And so no primary voter
Bought a
will
cheap
have
pair of
any
glasses
say
off
in
a
who the
fucking
Democratic
Amazon, man. What's up
nominee
on
for
the other
president
side?
is. It will be completely decided by
Honestly,
superdelegates and by party bosses. One thing I think is very clear is that President Biden
One
is
thing I
being
think is
pushed
very
out.
clear.
There's no
I
real
think
question
I'm Joe
about that.
Rogan. That's
The
why
fact
my
is the DNC
microphone
knew what they
shut.
were doing.
It
They
doesn't
knew
really
in
make any
advance
difference to
about
the
his
sound of my
cognitive
audio,
decline. They've
but it
known for
makes me look
years
like
about
I've
his
got a
cognitive
big
decline,
dick.
and they've hidden it from the American public. But let's make no mistake here. The fact is, Biden was put into a debate earlier than any other presidential candidate has ever debated. You hold it first in order to
Why?
expose Biden as having this cognitive decline. Every Democrat in major positions came out against him, and they put the heat to him with donors
wasn't
and
brought
even
in from
celebrities
within,
like
then.
George Clooney
Yeah,
coming
yeah.
out and saying he cannot win, he
Spot
needs
on.
to step down. Everyone turned on Biden and told him he had to step down. They have forced him out.
Well, I was talking just a bit earlier in the program to a veteran talk show host, Steve Maltzberg, and he believes giving Harris the driver's seat is actually a far
podcaster on
cry from a
RT.
Democratic move. Have a listen.
I'm pretty sure Count Spunky
First of all, she never won a primary. She was the first one to drop out. And then miraculously, the man that she
That's
called a
another
segregationist on stage at a debate picks her to be
When
VP.
did podcasters
I believe
become
he didn't
experts
pick her.
in fucking
He was told to
anything?
pick her. Okay? I mean, there was a report in a book that came out
Welcome
not
to
too long ago that Jill
2024, yo.
Biden
Hey, I'm a
was
podcaster.
furious when Kamala
Expert
Harris
in fucking
insinuated
sweet
that Joe
Fanny
Biden favored
Adams.
segregation on that debate. So
But
why
RT
would he
had
pick
me
her?
on.
And now this unprecedented, insane,
Look
has
at
been
Joe's
described, and
face
you talked
now.
about with them, way of picking her. I mean, bypassing the voters, bypassing the primaries, bypassing everything, and just placing her in there it just doesn't sit right. You know, it's the Democrats running on, the end of democracy. They always do that. They run on something, or they accuse the right of doing something, and it's exactly what they're doing. This is unprecedented. This isn't democracy.
Now remember, this guy isn't independent. He's on the right wing of politics, trying to sell you the right wing of politics ideology under the disguise of freedom. Freedom of speech, Alex Jones. I feel sorry for Alex Jones now. My mate showed me a clip of him and he's sitting on a fucking podcast like that, rattling a bottle of vodka straight out the bottle, man. I mean, even I turn the fucking webcam off when I'm doing that kind of shit. It's that fucking... it's that... it's not a good sign. I do feel sorry for him, man. It looks like he has had
The way they're doing this, it's insanity. And it's not fair. It's not right. The people who voted for Biden aren't getting their say. And it seems that it was planned out that way by people above Biden.
As he was met with applause inside the hallowed halls of Congress, outside, the public sentiment was headlined with banners of war crimes and charges of genocide. That's all about Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. His visit stateside had the red carpet rolled out, while...
Oh, by the way, I don't want to say I'm a clairvoyant, right? Well, I do. I say it all the time, because I fucking am. Well, obviously Michelle hasn't ran. But, let me just quickly show you something. Rangers were playing Birmingham last night. Rangers were playing Birmingham last night. Now, that guy who's playing the guitar there, funnily enough, was actually from Birmingham. Best away fans in the world, man. Let me tell you that I love you, and I think about you all the time. Caledonia, I love you every time. Right, so that was last night down in Birmingham for Trevor Francis's testimonial. That was me, 3 days ago. Anyway, it's Caledonia. Same song. But I tell you, man, the Rangers fans that look at that. Best away fans on the planet, man. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Birmingham fans must not have known what fucking hurt them last night. That's a testimonial. That's right, folks. Trevor Francis actually did play for Rangers.
At the same time, many wanted to see him go straight to prison. Well, journalist Manila Chan was on scene in Washington with details of his speech.
Oh, and again, I was right about that dude yesterday that stabbed up the soldier. Not today with terrorism. Crackpot with a NASA fucking... His name's Anthony
Iran is
something.
funding the anti-Israel protests that are going on.
Not Abdul fucking
right now
Mohammed.
outside this building.
So I wonder if Tommy Robinson, his multiple backtrack, or just claim it's like one big mass conspiracy. You know, the neighbours are in on it. All the cops are in on it. All the people that seen what was happening are in on it. The people that seen the arrest are in on it. The people who photographed the guy in his NASA fucking jacket getting arrested are in on it. So they're all in it. Oh. I mean, where's this? Right. And I'm not doing this to troll anybody, right? I'm just pointing out comments on my own fucking, on my own thingamajig. Right, you can't see that, can you? No. So, mental health, my arse, it was out of terror, but they want to use that word with all the boats coming in, you know? And it's like, that's the prevailing... People are just unthinking. They're unwilling to, like, figure out or wait for fucking information for things to come to hand. They just hear a soldier getting stabbed and they think about Lee Rigby and all that jazz and they just jump to the wrong conclusion out of confirmation bias, and then they'll never retract it. They'll just ignore the reality. This isn't the first time, fucking, what do they call it? Jumping the shark. It's not the first time that the Tommy Robinson cult has jumped the shark. They hear about a sliver of a story and then they make the rest up in their heat. They make the rest up on social media. They make the rest up in all their forums or all their social media bubbles they're in, blowing smoke up each other's arses instead of just waiting fucking for shit to transpire. So, the guy that got arrested, his name's Anthony something, I think he's a black dude, a crackpot obviously. Wearing a NASA fucking jumper and bouncing about on a moped. Nothing to do with an Allah Akbar nut bar, just a plain old nut bar. But no, don't let the facts or information in your story get in the way of fucking just blaming it on the brown man. Anyway. To make noise so nutjob can't sleep.
Many anti-Israel protesters, many choose to stand with evil. They stand with Hamas. They should be ashamed of themselves.
Right. See, the people that like got into conspiracy and all that through UFOs and Bigfoot and JFK, moon landings and bases on Mars and all that, and then they end up in a place of like, somehow the evangelical right-wing crackpots have used conspiracy to turn people to that. And he's talking about evil there, right? But they say the biggest trick the devil ever played was to convince you that he never existed, right? But the biggest trick the evangelical nut bars have ever done is convince you that the devil's real, walking amongst us, there's actual real demons and evil out there. Instead, well, there are evil people, or horrible people, but it's nothing to do with the magic man in the sky, but if they make you, if Alex Jones and his mob and his cult and old Tommy Robinson and his cult make you think that there's a real devil or demons and shit like that out there, then it's easier for you to believe in their magic man in the sky. Very much easier. It's a very easy see-through trick.
And don't be fooled. This is not a clash of civilizations. It's a clash between barbarism and civilization. I too appeal to America.
It's not a class of civilization, but we're calling all the brown people barbarians. Fucking Tommy, it's like Tommy Robinson could have wrote this himself. You know? Just hate the brown man because I tell you so. That's it.
Tools faster and we'll finish the job faster.
We'll kill them faster. Give us nukes. We'll just fucking level with that.
Don't applaud.
Netanyahu began his fiery hour-and-a-half-long speech using incendiary and emotive language, first borrowing words from World War II-era U.S. President FDR, calling the events of October 7th a day that will live in infamy. Netanyahu was met with thunderous applause and multiple standing ovations when he called for continued U.S. support of his war efforts. Aid to Israel, a bipartisan issue in Washington. He went on to call the protesters outside useful idiots and tools of Iran, at one point even accusing Iran of being involved in the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. Thousands are gathered here outside the U.S. Capitol building, where inside the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, is addressing the full Congress. Protesters here are demanding the arrest of Benjamin Netanyahu on the charges of war crimes.
They should absolutely not have invited Netanyahu to our country. He is a war criminal, and they should not be speaking to him. They've given him an honor that he not only doesn't deserve, but it's despicable.
We don't accept war criminals. We don't host them here. At least that's my hopes.
You do, mate.
And we just want a free Palestine. Ceasefire now. It's been too long.
This war criminal should not have come to U.S. soil. And first and foremost, we should stop giving them unlimited weapons of mass destruction an unlimited amount of our tax dollars.
Netanyahu's arrival in D.C. comes amid
You would
some of
hope,
the most
buddy, you would
tumultuous
hope
times in
that,
recent U.S.
Israel
political
isn't its own
history.
entity.
On the heels of an assassination attempt on Republican frontrunner and former President Donald Trump. And just a week later, news of the incumbent Joe Biden stepping down off the Democratic ticket, making way for his VP Kamala Harris to ascend to the top. As Vice President, Harris also wears the hat of President of the Senate, where the now Democratic presidential nominee should be presiding over events, such as when foreign dignitaries address a joint session of Congress. But according to the Harris campaign officials, the new nominee will be skipping Netanyahu's speech, citing a campaign event conflicting with the date. Instead, favoring a closed-door one-on-one with the Israeli Prime Minister, ditching the cameras and criticism altogether. Still, critics say this is a tacit boycott to appease angry voters, but that it's all disingenuous as she tries to distance herself from the Biden administration's politically unpopular stance on the conflict. Netanyahu's staff says they expect the prime minister to meet with the current president, Joe Biden, on Thursday. Biden, just back from COVID quarantine in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, says that he's making it his goal of his administration before he leaves office in January. So as Benjamin Netanyahu wraps up his 3-day visit to Washington, D.C., he is slated to make one more pit stop before he departs the United States. The Prime Minister heading down to Florida to meet with the presidential frontrunner, former President Donald Trump, at his Mar-a-Lago estate. So it appears the Prime Minister is hedging his bets by talking to anybody and everybody that is a key player ahead of the November elections here in the United States. Over in the capital, Manila Chan.
As a Palestinian flag flies above, look closely, you'll see a mannequin of Netanyahu's head on a stick up in flames. Well, sentiment on the street could not be clear enough. During the protest, around 200 arrests were made. The co-chairperson of the U.S. Green Party, which co-organized the rally, Craig Cayetano, shares the anti-Bibi views. He actually calls Netanyahu's speech full of warmongering. He also says it was full of lies.
Honestly, I can't believe it. It's just another typical warmongering speech from Netanyahu. There's a lot of lies, a lot of aggression towards Iranians. Honestly, the blame game needs to end. He really needs to take a look in the mirror and just really notice that there's a lot of death and destruction that he's caused. I think that they've been losing this message, and the truth has been getting out there. That's why you see the masses uniting behind this. And his continued disdain towards international law, the ICC, the ICJ, it's going to make us all less safe. And I think that it's getting out there. There is cracks, and there are other outlets like yours and other independent outlets that are covering this and thankfully are out there showing what's really going on in the streets. There's so many organizations that are scared to report, and the ones that are reporting obviously are getting silenced by mass media. So that's why we need to keep pushing this message forward and getting the information out there. Make sure we stay in the streets, stay engaged, and stay involved, and put everybody on notice.
Power over life and
while
death.
the Israeli Prime Minister branded the war on Gaza as a, quote, clash between civilization and barbarism, locals in the enclave struggle to survive as the infrastructure is pretty much completely destroyed. The World Health Organization now warning that polio and a host of other infectious diseases are running rampant after analysis of sewage samples produced alarming results. Our Middle East Bureau Chief Maria Fenoshina has this story.
There is no safe place in Gaza, locals say, as the IDF continues its offensive simultaneously in various parts of the enclave. But bombs and missiles are far from the only threat. Mountains of rotting garbage and lakes of sewage that Gazans leave among pose a serious health hazard. And this is not just a potential threat, it is already a reality. Dr. Nasser from Kamal Adwan Hospital in Gaza's north has just received a new patient, yet another one with severe skin disease.
In the last months of the war, we have noticed the spread of skin disease.
Just remembering why you can't. I can't watch this regularly on a daily basis, man. It really is just too tragic. It really is just too tragic. I'm going to leave it there for 2 seconds, and BBC has a wee bit less dead bodies and shit.
But that's life.
Of nonsense and serious stuff.
But I love that, because we can say knickers in a minute and then we'll all have a laugh.
She's hilarious, man.
Live from London, this is BBC News. US President Joe Biden appears on television from the White House to explain his decision to exit the presidential race.
Nothing can come in the way of saving our democracy.
The UK government admits its new green power scheme, Great British Energy, will not reduce bills overnight. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu tells the US Congress that his country will need to control security in Gaza when the war there is over. After pummeling Taiwan and the Philippines with torrential rain and strong winds, Typhoon Gaimi heads for southern China. And we're in Paris, where the first events of the Olympics have taken place ahead of Friday's opening ceremony.
How can the Olympics start when they've not had the open ceremony, but it's preliminary?
Hello and welcome, I'm Samantha Simmons. We start in the US, where President Biden has used a televised address from the White House to say that he abandoned his re-election bid to save American democracy. The 81-year-old, who until last weekend had resisted calls to stand aside, said it was time for younger voices to emerge and that he wanted to pass the torch to a new generation. He praised his Vice President, Kamala Harris, as a tough and capable leader. At a Republican Party campaign rally, Donald Trump told his supporters that Biden had pulled out because he was losing. From Washington, Will Grant reports.
Certainly doesn't have an Asian name, that's for sure.
In a speech no sitting president has delivered in more than half a century,
My name
Joe Biden
Anthony as
confirmed
well, I
his
would
decision to
suggest
drop out
that
of the
he's
race to the American people.
of Christian heritage.
It was time for new voices, and yes, he acknowledged younger voices.
So I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation. That's the best way to unite our nation.
He sounds
Nothing
a
can
wee
get
bit
in the
more
way of saving
eligible.
democracy, said President Biden, including personal
You can hear him a
ambition.
lot easier now.
He painted November's vote as a choice between forwards or back, hope or hate, unity or division. Despite Republicans calling for him to resign the presidency, Mr. Biden said he had no intention of stepping aside.
For the next 6 months, I'll be focused on doing my job as president. That means I'll continue to lower costs for hardworking families, grow our economy. I'll keep defending our personal freedoms and our civil rights, from the right to vote to the right to choose.
President of the United States, Joe Biden.
It's just a month since his make-or-break presidential debate with Donald Trump. His halting, at times garbled performance, a moment he never came back from.
With the COVID, excuse me, with dealing with everything we have to do with.
Now it's almost certain the person who's passing that torch to is his Vice President, Kamala Harris.
See, I was wondering, like, how, like, genealogy
Her
or
campaign has gone from
whatever.
strength to strength,
Well,
generating
people
tens of
say
millions
she's
of dollars
black.
in record time, and has energised a despondent base.
Oh my
She
God.
even seems to have settled on a slogan.
We are not going back. We are not going back.
Many of those watching weren't alive the last time a US president did this. In 1968, Lyndon Johnson moved aside only to see the Republican challenger, Richard Nixon, ultimately win the presidency. Mr. Biden will hope that history won't be repeating itself with Donald Trump. In North Carolina, the Republican candidate dropped the short-lived unifying tone of his campaign, turned...
Let's check out the odds. Cause last I checked it yesterday. And apparently it's not even been decided, although like the odds will say it's going to be Harris. It obviously looks like it's going to be Harris, but they've no shut down the betting, which means there's still a mechanism for other people to stand or run. obviously looks like it's going to be Harris, you know. So I was only half right. Biden was definitely going to step down, man. That was on the cards. Even though he was saying that he wouldn't. But it definitely looks like it's going to be Harris now.
On both the president and his new presumptive rival alike.
We officially defeated the worst president in the history of our country, crooked Joe Biden. He quit because he was losing so badly in the polls. He was down in every single poll and down by a lot, so he quit.
Politics is all Mr. Biden has ever known, a career which has spanned 5 decades from, as he put it, a kid with a stutter from Scranton to the White House. This decision will define his legacy. November's vote will define whether that gamble has worked. Will Grant, BBC News, Washington.
Let's speak to Gina Yanitel Reinhardt now, Professor of US Government at the University of Essex. Welcome to you, Professor. Good to have you on the programme. What did you make of President Biden's speech, given that he seemed to gloss over questions around his cognitive abilities?
Well, he certainly didn't want to address those issues and give them credibility. He is trying to make sure that he has 6 months where he can still accomplish something and still have authority and respect and credibility rather than be dismissed and continually called to Congress.
Right.
Legislative
initiatives. Biden stuff.
Actions. She's going
Predictable.
to really great to
Harris
worry.
is in. Everybody's just bumping their
Earlier
gums about
today,
it.
an oil spill has been detected, and maritime environmental the Philippines Coast Guard have.
And they're going to continue to try to come up with new things that we don't know and that nobody knows for reasons for people to oppose her.
Okay, Professor, really interesting to get your thoughts. Thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you.
All right.
Just want to bring you some breaking news now following a typhoon that's hit the Philippines. The Philippines Coast Guard have said they found the body of a missing crew of an oil tanker that sank earlier today in Manila Bay. They said that the MT Terra Nova capsized and eventually submerged 3.6 nautical miles east of Limay in Bataan earlier today. And an oil spill has been detected, and maritime environmental protection personnel are mobilised to help contain it. We'll have more on the fallout from that typhoon a little bit later on this hour. Now, though, a major new energy plan, which was at the heart of Labour's UK election manifesto, will not reduce bills overnight. The government minister, Ed Miliband, has admitted. Details of the first major plan from the new...
I thought we'd get rid of all these clowns, man. Ed Miliband, remember him? Fucking if it's no David Cameron crawling out from the shadows, it's Ed Miliband now.
Great British energy company are being announced and include building thousands of new wind farms on areas
Labour
of
are the
seabed
party
owned by the
of
royal
cocaine
family.
sniffers.
Our cost of
That's
living
why none of them
correspondent
can
Coletta Smith
breathe
reports.
through their nose.
The price, the source, and the future of energy in the UK are hot topics. So now the government is putting a little more meat on the bones of their election pledge to create Great British Energy. The company won't supply any power to households. Instead, the goal is to change the way energy is made and who owns those resources. The government is committed to spending...
So it's not privatising the electricity industry at all then? It's just building shit so they can sell you... Oh my God, man. When the fuck will a politician stand up and say what they mean and do what they say? Instead of all this gobbledygook fucking up a bit, down a bit, left a bit, right a bit, boom, and it's gone.
£8.3 billion of public money investing in wind power on land and at sea.
So, to save us money, we need to spend money. It makes perfect fucking sense.
New technologies like carbon capture, nuclear power, and community schemes on a small scale or for local communities to benefit from big...
Yeah, community schemes. You just get all the local homeless people to go on bikes which generate energy and go power my house. Homeless man.
projects near them.
It's a good community scheme.
They hope that'll be matched by £60 billion of private company investment, but there's no guarantee that will happen. So will it work?
I think GB Energy is fixing a different problem, which is more about who owns the assets rather than whether or not they get built. It's a government priority to say that the GB state owns some of it, which doesn't necessarily fix the issue, which is making it investable. Is a bigger issue for hitting our targets.
All these young boys nowadays bouncing about with a fucking
yes, I will put my money down.
moustache
With a
and
renewable
fucking
project, most of the
1980s
capital injection is up front. You need to
tight
spend a
shorts
lot of
and all
money at
that,
the beginning.
They don't even realise they're walking about as
Today,
if they're
the
like
Crown
fucking for
Estate
the
is getting
80s.
in
I
on the
don't
act.
think
It
they're all
owns
cool and hip.
vast swathes of coastline and seabed around the UK, and says that partnering with the government will halve the time it takes to get offshore wind projects delivering power. So the ball is now rolling on a key election promise, but it's a long-term plan which needs a fair wind from investors. That means customers are unlikely to see any benefit in their bills for a long time yet. Coletta Smith, BBC News.
Right, so it's a pile of
The
shite.
Conservative Party have called the
Pile
government
of
plans
shite.
a gimmick.
Promise
but
all this
Energy
shit,
Secretary Ed
deliver
Miliband
sweet
insisting
Fanny
the company
Adams,
is
and then they can,
absolutely the
then
right plan.
Nigel Farage gets in
The
2029.
mandate on which this government was elected was to make us what we...
Which says, Ed Miliband's on the gear! Miliband's on the gear! He can't breathe through his nose cause it's full of gear. What the fuck do these Labour motherfuckers do? They've got to have big cocaine parties before going on to any media and stuff. Why can't any of them breathe through their fucking nose? Answers on a postcard.
We call a clean energy superpower to drive forward investment in renewables, in nuclear, in clean energy to get off that dependence on fossil fuels. Now, GB Energy, Great British Energy, is one of the most important tools in the box to help us do that. A publicly owned energy generation company investing in that clean power.
See how they've changed the rhetoric? It's not a publicly owned energy company anymore. It's a publicly owned energy producing company. So it basically means they're going to take handles of fucking public dough, create shit to make energy, and then give it to private entities to sell it to you for a profit. Don't you just love those apples?
To get us off our dependence on fossil fuels, create good jobs, and frankly, generate wealth for the country.
Well, let's get more on this and speak with Fraser Stewart, who works for the independent not-for-profit energy research.
Right, generate wealth for a country. So the country's going to generate, the country's going to pay this money through taxes. You get all these wind farms, nuclear, blah, 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 to produce energy. Then we're going to give that energy to your French companies, your German companies, your multinational fucking companies to sell to us at a profit. That profit then goes into the companies' fucking back pockets who are sitting in France, Germany and elsewhere. So it's generating sweet Fanny Adams for the fucking country. It's taking taxpayers' money and then allowing private entities to profit from it.
Organisation Regan, where
can anybody see the scam yet?
To net zero, work for communities. Welcome to you. Thanks very much for being with us. We were just hearing that report there. The government's committing 8.3 billion to this idea, but actually 60 billion is needed from private investment. And there's questions around whether that money is really there and going to be readily available. What's your view on that?
So we know that in terms of the scale of the transition, we absolutely need significant amounts of private sector investment to
Fraser Stewart, can you get much more
particularly on
Scottish
these
name
larger
if you try,
technologies like offshore wind. There is plenty of interest in investment in this area. The challenge that we have is the scale of these projects. The initial investment is really, really significant. Some of these technologies, such as floating offshore wind, are also quite risky. We haven't really sort of proved the business case for them yet. So while the scale of government input through GB Energy to this is small relative to the amount of private sector investment we need, it will still serve a function of de-risking some of these more ambitious technologies.
Honestly,
I think
this is a joke,
though, something that we have to keep in mind is while GB Energy will serve a purpose in de-risking private sector investment, as a publicly owned energy company, what we really need to see at the mission at the heart of GB Energy is to make sure it is focused on capturing that ownership stake and delivering value back to citizens and communities across the country.
Yeah, the Conservative Party have called these government plans a gimmick. Do you have any sympathy with that view?
A big gimmick.
I don't think it is a gimmick. I think what's happened through the election is that GB Energy wasn't clearly enough defined, and maybe that was on purpose. But I think in terms of driving...
Oops! cips. What we were actually... See that shit we promised you before you elected us? I think you must have... We didn't explain it properly. We must have just not explained it right. You thought we were going to privatise the energy industry in the UK? No. All we're going to do is take your money, invest it, and then sell this shit to private companies to make money off of you. So you're going to be paying for it twice. You're going to be paying for all the fucking infrastructure so the private companies can still continue to rape us.
In that investment, and particularly for taking an ownership stake, it's definitely a positive first step, and we'd like to see that scale up in the future. When we look out, you know, if you're on your drive to work and you look out the window and you see solar farms or wind turbines, or if you're at the coast and you see a big offshore project, the vast majority of those, while it's positive to decarbonise the energy system, the vast majority of those aren't owned by the UK. They're not owned by citizens or communities. So GB Energy, even starting at a relatively small scale, will redress some of that by investing public money to take a share to make sure that the profits and the value from that are recycled into the UK economy. But ideally, UK government and GB Energy will work with local citizens and communities.
What profits?
To make sure
How are they going to make
our
profits if they're fucking just giving it to fucking energy suppliers
the
to
government
rape
admitted
us?
that this GB Energy isn't going to see the reduction of any of our bills overnight. How important is that to have communities that you work with, you know, ordinary people on board supporting this?
Exactly, OG Skywalker, the government's the middleman.
I think that's a critical point.
They wouldn't have got elected if they were going to screw over big business and the fucking massive multinational energy companies that fucking own all the shit here in the UK, or the French and German companies.
Energy projects, and we know that actually the renewables we have shielded us a very small amount from even sharper impacts from the energy crisis over the last few years. Lack of investment and a lack of progress on renewables has cost us in our pockets, again, as we've seen through the energy and cost of living crisis. So there is
everybody I know still getting raped for their fucking gas and electricity, especially the gas.
It's not going to happen overnight, but that's not a reason to not do it. That's a reason to roll up our sleeves and get on with it just now, with citizens and with communities at the forefront of the mission of GB Energy.
Okay, really interesting to get your thoughts. Fraser Stewart, thanks for joining us.
Who was that guy? Was he just...
I just want to bring you some breaking news coming into us now. This is concerning an incident filmed at Manchester Airport on Tuesday evening, which showed a male police officer holding a taser over a man who is lying face down on the floor. You may have seen this story. The officer then appears to stamp on and kick the man in the head while other officers shout at onlookers to stay back. Well, we've just heard that Greater Manchester Police have said they've suspended a police officer from all duties. It follows growing anger after this video emerged. We are just getting this information into us. They've also prompted a thorough review of the incident and referred themselves to independent office of police conduct for independent investigation.
Fucking cops, and especially the armed response, don't go out with a pair of fucking
those images
Adidas
were
on, do you know what I'm
distressing,
saying?
but we'll bring you more on that as soon as we get it. Another piece of breaking news also just into us, and this is concerning the stabbing of a army officer earlier on this week. We've just had that officer named. Let me just bring that to you. Jonathan Beale, our defence correspondent, has had this information just in. A defence source has confirmed to the BBC the stabbed soldier has been named as Lieutenant Colonel Mark Teaton, and that's all the information we have at the moment. We understand that he is in a serious condition after that stabbing. Do stay with us here on BBC News. Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News.
That was 17 minutes by. Updated 10 minutes ago, right? Boop, boop. Like half an hour ago. Right, so why did they not talk about Isan? Yeah, I'm thinking he's British, of African descent, Christian. I mean, you don't end up with a name Anthony without being a Christian, or Christian origin, or the heritage, or whatever you want to say it. Well, Tommy Robinson's mob rock up and start going, oh, it's a big conspiracy! Alright. What dish? KY dish.
Typhoon Gaimi is moving towards southern China after pummeling Taiwan and the Philippines with torrential rain and strong winds.
Sounds too
The
gay for
authorities
me.
in mainland China have issued this year's first red alert for parts of the southeastern coast. The storm hit Taiwan on Wednesday, killing 3 people and forcing thousands to evacuate. As we heard, the Philippines...
Strong winds this morning. Now,
surely that should be on the Weather Channel, but I don't know.
as it's telling us, so there is
coming in from the Philippine coast.
Before, they weren't 24 hours, although some have flooding down into car park. Ships also run aground.
Amongst the events taking place were football and rugby 7.
And the hopes from the local Coast Guard and local governments that they will be able to rescue the people on those ships very soon.
Okay, Jan, thank you for updating us there from Taipei.
Must have been some storm if it killed a
The first events
oil
of the
tanker.
Paris Olympics have got underway ahead of Friday's opening ceremony along the River Seine. Amongst the events taking place were football and rugby 7s. Our correspondent Katie Gornall is in Paris with more.
Overlooking the Eiffel Tower, the beach volleyball venue is nestled just in front of it. And that's one of the things that makes this Olympic Games unique and special. The fact that you have these major landmarks scattered throughout the city, the venues rather, scattered throughout the city with major landmarks as their backdrop, the likes of the beach volleyball or the Place de la Concorde, which has been turned into a urban sports hub. But it's also one of the things, as well as making the games special, that makes them very complicated and difficult to secure. And what we're seeing now on the ground in Paris is a huge security operation, particularly focused around the River Seine and that 6-kilometre stretch where the opening ceremony will take place. And it's not so much a ring of steel, but a maze of barriers and checkpoints with police and security guards asking for passes, asking for QR codes. It's very difficult at the moment to move around the city centre if you are a local. It's closed mostly to pedestrians and to cars, and that's caused, from what we've seen, quite an element of frustration among the local people here. But then we've also seen great enthusiasm as well. You mentioned that the sport has already started. France have begun the rugby 7s, and that means that the poster boy of these games for the French, Antoine Dupont, has been in action as well. And we've seen bars and restaurants packed with big screens watching him and cheering him on and the French on. So I think a mixed picture, but I think we will see that enthusiasm grow once the opening ceremony starts, once the security operation around that specific area loosens up a bit, and once the sport really kicks into place from Saturday.
Katie Gornall there.
Do you know the Eiffel Tower
largest
was sold
platypus
twice?
Conservation Centre has welcomed its first residents as
One
part
of
of
the
a
best
project
puns
to
ever,
protect the
man.
semi-aquatic mammal found only in Australia. For platypuses, yes, that is correct, that is the plural of platypus, we have checked, have been released into the custom-built research centre at the zoo. It features multi-tiered streams, waterfalls...
So for us to better understand how to breed platypus,
oh my god, man, that guy needs to be
environment is
an Australian.
Fuck's
sake, mate, you better have a burger.
We even have in the country. It's an unknown number.
Fucking survive about 5 minutes
Before
before
we go, a
melting.
shot of the skyline in Paris, the iconic Eiffel Tower there. The Olympic opening ceremony gets underway.
So that's
Stealing
the
the country.
half-hour news from that mob. This is going to be much of a muchness. What am I looking for? 46.
Police, and a video, we've all seen it, that shows one of the grand... Morning everybody, 9 o'clock coming up on today's programme for you, talking about Greater Manchester Police, and a video, we've all seen it, that shows one of their officers, armed officers, kicking and stamping on a man's head who was on the ground.
Plus, in politics, the former Security Minister Tom Tugendhat
Just another day for you and me in paradise.
And we speak to an Olympic dressage trainer over those allegations against the sport's golden girl, that's Charlotte Dujardin.
Allegations, there's videos are like...
A government minister tells this programme images of a police officer kicking a man in the head are
They're not even
deeply
going to show you,
disturbing
it's
and must
so
be investigated.
sensitive.
Hundreds of people here protested against the police, chanting GMP, shame on you.
Police charge a 24-year-old man with attempted murder over the stabbing of a uniformed soldier in Kent.
Now, will the cult of Tommy Robinson come out and retract all their shit. We all know it's terror. We all know what it is. They won't say the word terror, but it's pure terror. A fucking crackpot with a gripe against the British Army, and he's took it out for whatever reason, man. He's a fucking astronaut, according to his jacket. He had a jacket with a big fucking NASA fucking thing on it, didn't he? Anywho, let's get back to the Sky News.
Joe Biden speaks for the first time since pulling out of the presidential race, saying his personal ambition could get in the way of saving our democracy.
I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation.
Fucking.
It's the best way to unite our nation.
I was at the gym the other day and I can hardly fucking
Typhoon
walk.
Gamy lashes Taiwan and the Philippines, killing at least 22 and hampering efforts to rescue sailors from a capsized tanker.
Oh, hello, sailors. It's Typhoon Gamy here. Whoa, there we go, man. There's some copyrighted shit there. Celine Dion. Just and understand the news. This isn't news, it's titillation. It's closer to entertainment than it is actual information and news. You know, it's talking heads with opinions and Comcast's editorial
From
stance.
his operational duties after a video emerged showing him
She looks
stamping
like
on
Skeletor,
someone's
doesn't
head
she, man?
at Manchester Airport. The images are shocking.
Bang.
Greater Manchester Police said officers had been responding to reports of an assault on officers at Terminal 2.
So they decided to assault the people that were bad for doing the assault.
And then stomps on the suspect's head as he lies.
Don't you just love it, man?
On the ground. Speaking
All
on
right,
behalf of the
Roberto,
government this morning,
man.
Ed Miliband told us he thinks the images are deeply disturbing, but it's a matter which needs to be investigated further.
Well, they're deeply disturbing images, Kay, and there needs to be
man, I
a
can't
proper
listen to these
investigation.
people, man. What? Why? Well, it's because they're fucking cocaine heads, innit? They're cocaine nuts, and they can't breathe through their nose. That's why I don't think we need to worry about a cashless society, right? Can he have a cashless society? How are all the MPs and celebrities going to get their Charlie and all their drugs and shit without a fucking paper trail back to them? Oh, fuck, what's that?
Harmless. There was no threat, no risk posed by that individual. The kick, because he raised his head and looked, was horrendous enough. And then the stamping on the head. Those two combined cannot ever be justified. And they're absolutely right to remove this officer from operational duty. In fact, I would go as far as to say that the officer should be suspended.
Should be sacked?
Well, last night, suspended, should be sacked. Manchester Police's divisional headquarters.
Suspend them, full pay. Sit at home fucking watching Netflix for a couple of months and then get his fucking put back in.
Shocking footage that has emerged on social media. What are the police saying?
That's emerged on social media. Hello, McFly! Hello, McFly! You just fucking showed it on Sky News, which is getting broadcast on Council TV, you daft bint. Emerged on social media.
That's right, Kay. That shocking footage has been given criticism, not just online and on social media, but here on the ground in Rochdale. Last night, hundreds of protesters came here to voice their concern. They were chanting GMP, shame on you. And over the course of the last 24 hours, we've had 3 statements from the police, the last of which addresses that protest and those community concerns. In it, they say that a protest held last night outside Rochdale Police Station about our response at Manchester Airport has concluded safely without incident. It then says, we understand the immense feeling of concern and worry that people feel about our response and fully respect their right to demonstrate their views peacefully.
Well,
As I said, that's one of 3 statements
thank you. We've
put
got
out
the
by
right to
Manchester Police
protest
over the
against the
last
cops
24
kicking
hours.
fuckers.
In some of those statements, they also add context to the situation that
and if you
footage which
protest
came out
anyway we don't
from
like,
Terminal 2
we'll
at
kick
Manchester
fuck out you
Airport on
again.
Tuesday. They say that
How'd you
they
like
were
them
called to
apples?
reports of an assault and a female officer suffered a broken nose and other officers were forced to the ground and suffered injuries which required hospital treatment when they were responding to those reports of an assault. And that 4 men were arrested on a number of charges, including assault of an emergency worker, affray, and obstructing the police. As I say, this has received widespread condemnation. There's been comments over the course of your breakfast programme, as well as comments from Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, who said he'll be in dialogue with Greater Manchester Police around the situation. Greater Manchester Police have also said that they have taken the officer off duty, he hasn't been suspended, and that they have referred themselves to the IOPC, the regulator.
OK, for now, thank you. And we'll be chatting to Graham Weston, our police commentator, in this hour here on
Remember that cop
man's been charged with
kicked that person in the face
who was stabbed
with a
in Gillingham.
UK citizenry consent, because everybody, not everybody actually, I still need to
possession
check
of
this.
an offensive weapon in a public place. The victim
Hold on.
remains in a serious but stable condition. Murder of a soldier who was hour here on Sky News. Meantime, a man's been charged with the attempted murder of a soldier who was stabbed in Gillingham. Anthony Essen from Mooring Road in Rochester will appear in court today, charged with attempted murder and possession of an offensive weapon in a public place. The victim remains in a serious but stable condition in hospital. In a rare and historic televised address, the US President Joe Biden said his decision not to run again was about defending democracy. The 81-year-old acknowledged that the
defending
unity
democracy.
Of the
Now I'm just going to pick the person that's going to run.
And step aside to the torch of a new generation. Our US correspondent James Matthews reports.
As the sun
Defender
descended,
they really need to get a new tagline, especially if they are using Defender Democracy, don't vote for Trump.
I revere this office, but I love my country more. It's been the honor of my life to serve as your president.
Very
the defense of democracy, which is at stake, I think is more important than any title.
This was Joe Biden at the Resolute desk. With his family looking on, he gave his reasons for stepping down.
I believe my record as president, my leadership in the world, my vision for America's future, all merited a second term. Nothing can come in the way of saving our democracy. That includes personal ambition.
Save our democracy. Don't vote for Trump. So, you save our democracy by allowing somebody telling you who to and not to vote for. A wee bit off, isn't it?
So I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation. That's the best way to unite our nation.
Yeah,
he told
look at that.
It was his decision, even if they knew his party had forced his hand.
You know, there is a time and a place for long years of experience in public life. But there's also a time and a place for new voices, fresh voices, yes, younger voices.
White House staff gathered for the speech in the grounds. Donald Trump watched it in the air, an in-flight movie in which he co-starred.
The great thing about America is here, kings and dictators do not rule, the people do. History is in your hands. The power is in your hands.
The president, deemed too old, spoke of his choice of a younger replacement.
I would like to thank our great Vice President Kamala Harris. She's experienced, she's tough, she's capable.
Washington will wake up after a day of protest against a visit by Benjamin Netanyahu. Today, the Israeli Prime Minister will meet the American president. Joe Biden is a president with 6 months left in office, and yet this felt like a farewell speech. Legacy was laced through it, a self-penned narrative to shore up a reputation.
He's just going to go into the background with a run-up to the election because he just makes the Democrats look even worse.
I've been blessed a million times in return with the love and support of the American people. I hope you have some idea how grateful I am to all of you.
After the public address, there was a private gathering with those closest. From the 46th president, it is the long goodbye, and it's emotional. James Matthews, Sky News, in Washington.
Scottish guy again. He ruled the world. Oh, the sun's trying to come.
Well, that to come through the course of the coming months, with regards to.
I said that without even moving my lips.
Ventriloquism.
There we
Very good
go.
job.
What else have you got?
Situation in the Philippines and China to tell you about the weather there. With
Yes.
regards to the typhoon, at least 22 people have been killed in the Philippines, a further 3 in Taiwan after Typhoon Gamy made landfall. There's also concerns over an oil tanker which has sunk off the coast of the Philippines' capital, Manila. Well, let's bring in our Asia correspondent, Nicole Johnson, who's live in Beijing for us.
How
Nicole, tell
long
us more
till they
about the
say global
situation.
warming, Jank?
Well, first of all, it made landfall on the northeast tip of Taiwan. This is a mountainous area. A number of people were killed, some 200 people were injured, and Taiwan is really at a standstill. Schools, businesses are closed, there's no flights going in and out, and a cargo ship has sunk off the coast there. A number of crewmen were in the water, so a really serious situation.
Tanker.
But it's the Philippines that has borne the heaviest brunt of the impact of this typhoon. In Manila, very heavy flooding throughout the capital city there. People have been wading through water up to their waist, up to their neck, helicopters having to get people off the tops of roofs.
Up to their waist.
And as you said, also reports there that an oil tanker has capsized in the sea. They haven't been able to get out to it, so not able to try and contain any possible oil spill there yet. But now the focus is here in China, in the southern provinces of Fujian, Zhejiang and Guangdong. These are rich coastal areas, and we'll be waiting to see over the next few hours what sort of impact this very heavy storm has there. But the Chinese authorities are on
it's
alert,
probably
and
what
they
is
have
known as
issued one of their
typhoon
highest
season. You know, you get
emergency warnings to
tornado
people.
season
So
for
we'll keep you
America.
updated
Then a
on
tornado
how it
happens.
plays
Like,
out here in China over the rest of the day.
tornado! Like, well, what do you call
On the
this
Sky
time
News
of year?
Update app,
Tornado
Nicole, thank
season?
you.
A shot
Around
caller?
25,000 people have been evacuated from the Canadian province of Alberta due to ongoing wildfires. 2 wildfires are affecting the town of Jasper, which is situated in the Canadian Rockies' largest national park. Firefighters are battling to save key infrastructure, including the Trans Mountain Pipeline, which can carry up to 900,000 barrels of oil a day. Hundreds of fires are ravaging the western provinces of Alberta.
That would be priority.
A man who was arrested yesterday on suspicion of causing death by dangerous driving in Wakefield has been bailed pending further inquiries. 6 people, including 2 children, lost their lives in the collision involving a vehicle and a motorcycle on the A61 last week. West Yorkshire Police issued an appeal for anyone who saw a grey-coloured Porsche 911 car in the area around the time of the collision to come forward. The firm behind last week's global IT outage that cost companies billions of dollars is offering $10 food compensation vouchers as compensation. The outage caused the grounding of 5% of air traffic and the crash of the NHS's online systems. CrowdStrike sent the vouchers to apologise to its teammates and partners for the extra workload.
Thanks, guys. Just hearing within the last few
Here,
minutes,
have some gingy bottles.
Have suspended.
Go and buy yourself an ice cream.
Who, after footage emerged from a Manchester airport, which showed the officer kicking a.
Top of the hour, Al Jazeera. Nope, not France 24. Where the fuck's Al Jazeera?
Decision to withdraw from the presidential campaign. Made the
Way of saving our.
Too many dead babies and bodies, man. That's why I have to turn off fucking RT, man.
But nothing can come in the way of saving our democracy.
Joe Biden outlines why he made the historic decision to withdraw from the presidential campaign. Fears of an environmental disaster in the Philippines after a tanker laden with oil capsizes. And a desperate hunt for hundreds of people still missing 5 days after a landslide hit a remote region of Ethiopia.
Flavour it down for the old Al Jazeera. War on Gaza.
The Israeli army has released a group of at least 8 Palestinian prisoners in central Gaza. Many show signs of torture. They were taken by ambulance to Al-Aqsa Hospital in Deir al-Balah. Israeli forces had been holding them in Offa prison in the occupied West Bank. Let's turn to Hind Qadari. She's in Deir al-Balah in central Gaza. Hind, what more can you tell us about the release of these Palestinian prisoners?
Well, you can hear the drone.
Well, 8 Palestinian prisoners have been received and transferred here to Al-Aqsa Hospital. They came from Netzarim and they were in Aufar prison. The last stop was
on the latest AI mobile
among them
phones,
are 2 women. They were detained in different areas. We saw a Palestinian woman who was detained in the West Bank, another man who was detained in Karim Shalom. He was a truck driver, and we also met a 17-year-old Karim Lowe's who was detained from Deir al-Balah. All of those who were imprisoned are saying that they were tortured, they were threatened, they were deprived from clothes, from medicine, from talking to their families. Most of the families who came here and saw their relatives and their beloved ones did not even know anything about them all that time, the time they were arrested. What's heartbreaking is the families of the Palestinians that have family members still missing. They came and started asking about those prisoners about their beloved ones, if they know them, if they heard their names, because they know nothing about them. So people who were freed started telling those Palestinian families if they know anything about their relatives, but they're all drained, they're exhausted. Some of them were not
doesn't he remember his address, mate? His family
wrote
it and he's writes it on his clothes labels.
During the interrogation.
He gets lost.
We can see the distress of these
his way back to the White
House in the pictures that are showing on our screen. Meanwhile, there have been more attacks on Gaza City, Hind. What can you tell us about those?
Well, the most escalating area, and it's intensifying in Khan Yunis. And earlier today, the Israeli forces announced that they were able to retrieve 5 bodies of dead Israelis. Most of these, according to the Israeli media, they said that those were killed on October 7, and then their dead bodies were in Khan Yunis. We do not know details about the operation, but this is what the Israeli media announced.
This scores in the doors with the Palestinians nowadays, man. I think the last time
sudden ground operation in Khan Yunis took place, where the Israeli forces gave only minutes for the Palestinians to evacuate their houses. However, artillery shelling continues, airstrike continues, and not only in the red zone that has been announced by the Israeli forces, but also in different parts of Khan Yunis. In Rafah, the ground operation continues. In the middle area, the Israeli forces targeted a house in Al Buraish. At least 7 were injured. And in the Gaza City, there was a house that was targeted also. 4 Palestinians were killed. So from the north to the south to the middle area, all areas across the Gaza Strip is being targeted, actually.
Okay, thank you for that update. Hind Qadari there in Deir al-Balah. Now, while that is going on, US President Joe Biden is set to hold a meeting with Israel's Prime Minister in the coming hours in Washington, D.C. It comes after thousands of protesters gathered on Capitol Hill yesterday to denounce Benjamin Netanyahu's visit as he gave an address to Congress. Let's get more on this with Mark Owen-Jones, Associate Professor of Middle East Studies at Hamad bin Khalifa University. Let's start with Netanyahu's address to Congress. I mean, it was quite the juxtaposition, wasn't it? Just as Benjamin Netanyahu was being given this huge standing ovation by members of Congress, outside you had thousands upon thousands of protesters against his visit.
Yeah, you had thousands and thousands of protesters outside. You had dozens of Palestinians being killed, as you just saw. You saw some tortured Palestinians being released. All the while, a wanted war criminal is addressing, one of the most powerful nations in the world. And the protesters were very clear. You had people dyeing fountains red with blood. But the level of security was quite something. I mean, about 200 protesters have been arrested. And these are anti-Netanyahu protesters specifically. I think framing them as, either pro-Palestinian is actually misleading, because they are there to protest a man who is accused of war crimes and who is in the US to actually extend the war to gain weapons that will be used in what has been described as a plausible genocide. So those protesters are on the right side of history, and I think the Republicans cheering on Netanyahu will remember it as, entertaining and showing deference to a leader who will go down in history as a war criminal.
Looking ahead to today, we have a meeting between Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and President Biden. They are due to discuss
Remember,
Gaza
they hate us
and a
for
possible
our
ceasefire
freedoms.
deal. Do we think anything serious is actually going to come out of these talks?
Well, one of the arguments is that Biden will try to use this to shore up a positive legacy, and that because he's not going for a re-election, he will use this to be firmer with Netanyahu, to try and push for a ceasefire. But things, by the same token, if he's not going for re-election, this could be an opportunity for him to actually, fulfill his credentials as, the first American president to describe himself as a Zionist. Will he go down the road of wanting his legacy being someone who tried to forge peace and a ceasefire, or will he want his legacy to be someone who was the staunch ally of Israel and Netanyahu? I'm not necessarily convinced that anything will come of it. Let's not forget that even if Biden wants this to be about a ceasefire, Netanyahu is clearly in the US to actually extend the war and get more weapons. So it's going to be a tough one. And let's also not forget Netanyahu is going to speak to, who's likely to be the presidential candidate for the Democrats, Kamala Harris, and he's also going to Mar-a-Lago to see Donald Trump, right? So Netanyahu won't want to commit to anything, even if Biden wants that, because Netanyahu also has one eye on the future, and particularly he's looking and hoping for a Republican presidency, and he's also going to have to discuss with Harris, who, if the Democrats win, she'll be likely the next president.
And we heard our correspondent Hind Qadari talking about those 7 Palestinian prisoners who've been released. It's not the first time that the Israeli army has released prisoners that show signs of torture in this way.
No, not at all. I mean, there was a report a couple of months ago that documented in detail the forms of violence and torture that Palestinians had been subjected to, including forms of sexual violence and rape. So this is something that the UN have demanded an investigation into. However, we know that one of the reasons, for example, the International Criminal Court has sought to charge Netanyahu with war crimes is because they deem the Israelis incapable of investigating their own crimes. So we're not going to see an investigation. And all these accusations of torture against Palestinians will not be investigated by the Israelis. And let's not remember, many of the casualties we've seen and many of those killed in Gaza we've seen have shown evidence of being executed with their hands bound and wounds to the head. So torture in custody, extrajudicial killings have been a characteristic of what's been happening in Gaza since October the 7th. And let's not be surprised. I mean, this is plausible genocide. I think torture in such a context is something that we have to assume takes place.
OK, thank you for that. Mark Owen-Jones, Associate Professor Middle East Studies at Hamad bin Khalifa University.
Mark Owen-Jones? Owen-Jones is here now. Reporter over here.
Well, US President Joe Biden addressed the nation from the Oval Office explaining his decision to end his re-election bid. Alan Fisher has the story.
After ending his presidential campaign, Joe Biden faced the American public for the first time. From the Oval Office on primetime TV, he explained why he was out of a race that he claimed just days ago he could win.
In recent weeks, it's become clear to me that I need to unite my party in this critical endeavor.
It was the terrible debate performance in Atlanta 4 weeks ago that undermined his campaign. People in his party wondered if he was capable of winning. The polls said he would lose, and heavily. And while Donald Trump watched on his plane, he warned the Republican candidate was not the answer.
I ran for president 4 years ago because I believed and still do that the soul of America was at stake. The very nature of who we are was at stake. That's still the case.
The president said it was his job to hand over to a new generation, to new voices, and clearly endorsed his vice president to follow him into the Oval Office.
I'd like to thank our great Vice President Kamala Harris. She's experienced, she's tough, she's capable. She's been an incredible partner to me and a leader for our country.
Outside the White House, a small crowd gathered for a hurriedly organised Thank You Joe rally. One analyst says he made the right decision.
It's amazing to see him step up and sacrifice his own personal ambitions for what he recognizes is the better path forward.
And he ended telling the American people the power was in their hands, where it had been all along.
The great thing about America is here, kings and dictators do not rule, the people do. History is in your hands. The power is in your hands.
Joe Biden will not be America's next president. He now effectively becomes a lame duck. And one of the jobs he had was to convince the American people he can still perform as president. But there's also the realization that after almost 50 years, his political life is effectively over. Alan Fisher, Al Jazeera, at the White House.
Well, ahead of Biden's address, thousands of people attended Donald Trump's rally in North Carolina, an important battleground state. Trump wasted no time in attacking his likely opponent in November, Kamala Harris. Al Jazeera's Phil Lavelle reports from the city of Charlotte.
Even on a Wednesday afternoon, even in North Carolina's oppressive summer heat, thousands came to see Donald Trump, lining up for hours to get inside. Their president, the big draw for the day, in a packed stadium of 8,500.
He's a great man. He's a good man. Yep. So that's why we're here to support him.
Have you ever met him?
Others turned away because there just wasn't enough space. And within seconds of walking on stage, the attacks began. Little love for his likely rival Kamala Harris in this room.
Everything Kamala touches turns into a total disaster. She'll destroy our country if she's elected, so we won't let her be elected. We can't let that happen.
And not much outside either.
What about Kamala Harris? Do you think she's a worthwhile adversary? No, why? Why not? She's in charge of the border, isn't she? What the borders are.
She's a joke.
She's worse than Biden.
Yeah.
North Carolina is a battleground state. Now, that doesn't mean it swings wildly from Republican to Democrat. In fact, the Democrats haven't taken North Carolina since Obama in 2008. But what it does mean is that when the Republicans have won here, it has been with very small margins of victory. And that's why, despite such an obvious, huge show of support for Donald Trump, the Democrats still feel confident that they stand a chance.
Hello, Fayetteville!
The state has a Democratic governor, Roy Cooper, and he is widely believed to be on Kamala Harris's shortlist of possible running mates. Trump often talks about his peacemaking credentials. He did here.
They're not talking about she has to have a middle-aged white dude. Wow.
We're heading right into the teeth of it.
If that's
we
what
have
you
stupid
need.
people representing us.
And that's why this voter is backing him.
The U.S. will have a better image internationally than what the Democrat did.
This rally was held
Sounds like she was
indoors. It is
behind the
reported
bike
that
sheds
most
having a quick
future
pump.
Trump ones will be too after that attempt on his life. But the crowds will still come, and the attacks against Team Harris too. Phil Lavelle, Al Jazeera, Charlotte, North Carolina.
Typhoon Gaimi is moving across the Taiwan Strait, heading towards Fuzhou in China's Fujian province. The high-speed railway system there has been closed, affecting about 260 trains. Ferries have been suspended. Construction at building sites have been halted. Laura Westbrook is in Hong Kong. She sent us this update.
Typhoon Gaimi moves across the Taiwan Straits. It's expected to make landfall in Fuzhou in China's Fujian province and then move northwards where it will lose intensity. But forecasters say it's going to bring with it very heavy rain. And they are making the necessary preparations. They've evacuated some 150,000 people, mostly from coastal areas. They've also asked fishing boats to bring the boats to harbour. They've suspended some ferry services, trains. What emergent heavy rain as well. And remember, China has been experiencing persistent heavy rain in recent weeks. That has caused deadly flooding and landslides.
People are returning to their homes in the Philippines after Typhoon Gaimi brought the capital to a standstill on Wednesday. The storm triggered severe flooding and landslides. 14 people died and more than 600,000 were displaced from their homes. Meanwhile, a tanker carrying 1.5 million litres of oil has capsized off Manila Bay in the Philippines. Strong currents are causing the spill to spread quickly. 16 of the crew members on board the tanker have been rescued, but another has died. Leah Guerrero is the Greenpeace Philippines country director. She says communities hit by the spill will be affected for a long time to come.
Oil spills really leave permanent damage to the marine environment and to communities that depend on a healthy marine environment. So even if, for example, an oil spill...
Just want to see what they're saying on Press TV.
This government, we gave you the entry, we are going to show you the exit. Mr. President, watch us.
They buy cars, they're just enriching themselves. Meanwhile, many percentage of Kenyans are languishing.
Keep your mouth shut.
I'm hoping this is going to be the top of it.
This week on Expose, Zionist media hurled the New York Times that 45
magazine shows that proposes news on news channels, man. Is this going to be the top of our news? Maybe. You better stop.
The headlines: Hamas says Israeli Prime Minister's address to the U.S. Congress was full of lies, showing he's not serious about a ceasefire in Gaza. Press TV exclusive: local officials in Yemen's Hodeidah say the port city remains fully operational despite the recent Israeli attack.
It looks operational to me, man, doesn't it?
And U.S. President Joe Biden says his country is at an inflection point and that he decided to end his re-election bid to unite his party.
Oh, God almighty.
Hello and welcome everybody. It's 10:30 a.m. here in the Iranian capital Tehran. You're watching Press TV's World News. Our top story for this half hour: leader of Iran's Islamic Revolution Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei has recently said Israel and its main backer, the United States, failed to bring the Palestinian resistance to its knees. A message posted in Hebrew on Ayatollah Khamenei's X account a few days ago was published on Wednesday simultaneously with the Israeli Prime Minister's rhetoric against Hamas during his address to the U.S. Congress. The post says the resistance's power is becoming increasingly evident every day, adding that a mighty power like the U.S. is supporting Israel in its fight against a resistance group, but has been unable to bring it to its knees. This came as Benjamin Netanyahu addressed American lawmakers and sought more financial and military support. Hamas condemned the speech, saying it proves Washington's full partnership in Israel's heinous crimes. It said the speech was full of lies and showed he is not serious about a ceasefire. Netanyahu's trip to Washington amid the Gaza genocide has sparked political divisions and public protests in the U.S.
Israeli Premier Benjamin Netanyahu's controversial invitation to Congress amid 9 months of brutal ethnic cleansing and attempted genocide in Gaza was met by over 10,000 angry protesters. They demanded not just an end to Washington's unconditional support and arming of Israel, but the arrest of Netanyahu himself.
This is Netanyahu's first foreign visit since October 7th, but it's also his first foreign visit since the International Criminal Court announced that they will seek an arrest warrant for Netanyahu over war crimes in Gaza.
Netanyahu should be locked up. He's a war criminal. ICC declared him as a criminal. He commit genocide, he commit atrocity, and he killing babies and women, innocent, and those people that are dying, they are not Hamas, they don't have weapons.
Almost 130 Democratic lawmakers, or half of all Democrats in Congress, boycotted his speech.
I'm pretty sure
this is all a show. I mean, in the end, they're not really voting
that
for
Hamas is hiding
anything that's
behind,
substantial.
In the,
we have just a couple of people in Congress that that are doing
Certainly
some work,
no
but the
justifying
majority
what's going on. I'm
of
just
the
saying
Democratic establishment and all the
it's
Republican,
not one
basically,
extreme or
establishment
the other.
is just towing the
I would
line
argue.
of whatever AIPAC wants them to do.
Many in the Democratic Party are hoping that the apparent election replacement of Joe Biden with his Vice President Kamala Harris can somehow win back the huge amount of progressive voters who vowed never to vote for Biden over his role in the genocide.
I don't think so, because she oversaw everything that he was doing. She's also a huge AIPAC supporter, has taken a lot of money from AIPAC. She's married to a huge Zionist. So for us right now, it doesn't really matter who, she's the same thing as Biden. It's not really making a difference to us that
Different
she's
face, same shit.
going to be taken over.
The protest was filled with American Jews who insisted that Israel does not represent all Jews and that anti-Zionism can never be equated with anti-Semitism.
You know, as long as Zionism has existed, there's been Jews who have spoken out and opposed it, that have made it clear that Zionism is an ideology that wants to create a Jewish-only state where Jews have special rights over Palestinians. And for centuries, Jews have stood up for equal rights, have stood up against fascism, to say that everyone deserves
It's a
equal
religious
rights,
supremacy ideology, man.
thousands of Jews
Ran by Christians, I would argue.
peace and justice and safety for all.
That's just my
huge
crackspot
police presence led
crackpot
to many
conspiracy.
protesters renaming Washington, D.C. to Fort Netanyahu. This week there have been hundreds of arrests, with police using pepper spray on protesters as well. In his speech, Netanyahu immediately focused on warmongering against Iran, and even called the pro-Palestinian protesters outside, quote, Iran's useful idiots. Ramin Mazaheri, Press TV, Washington,
that's
D.C.
going to quell the protests, calling them useful fucking idiots. It's a great policy.
Well, joining us on this edition of the News Review, we have journalist and political commentator Samuel Geddes joining us from Melbourne. Also, we have journalist and activist Thomas Barakat speaking to us from Vancouver. Gentlemen, welcome to the program. Let's start off with Mr. Geddes in Melbourne. First of all, I want to get your thoughts
on
Netanyahu's
Press TV
speech
want to say?
to Congress. As he addressed American lawmakers, of course, he sought more financial and military support for this genocidal war.
Well, the content of his speech, if one could even call it that, really is not even worth engaging with or
Journalist
on.
and
What I
political
think really is
commentator,
significant about
podcaster. He's got a
is-
webcam.
I mean, he was right in one sense that the world very much is at an inflection.
Technically speaking, I'm a political commentator. Trying to know why? I commentate on PoliTITS. It's meaningless, man. They're experts in fuck all. They've scoured the internet for podcasters who are on the same page and then stick them on their programme.
This does.
It's Count
represent an
Spunkula
inflection
and
point. It
Sargon of
represents
Mossad
a
and
point
Paul
in
Joseph
time
Watson
where
not been on Press TV.
If ever
have.
justice is to be served for the victims of this genocide, every single individual, with the exception of member Rashida Tlaib, will not be able to deny their complicity and their aid to one degree or another in facilitating this genocide.
Short GR.
I would imagine, as I'm sure my colleague probably does, that in future decades and probably centuries, that footage will be looked on in the same way that we look at the Nuremberg rallies, and we regard the people attending those events similarly or accordingly.
It's like Trump rallies, man, the Nuremberg rallies.
Right, and Mr. Barakat,
Fucking
same question
hero
to
worship,
you
man.
as well. I want to get your perspective on of course, the timing of this address by the Israeli Prime Minister, and we can see that the Israeli warmongering, murderous, child-killing regime still receives that bipartisan.
There is really murderous, killing scumbag. Could fit any more
Yes, I think
words in
that
there?
the Netanyahu speech in the
Congress,
journalists and activists are fucking people with fucking webcams, man. They're absolutely experts in Sweet Fanny Adams.
To shift the entire discourse from and even
STV need to get better production value, man. They really, really need better production value.
On a daily basis, and talk about Iran and the Iran proxy is what he called, and nobody is buying this discourse. Not even Netanyahu himself.
I can hear the guy in the studio move about clearer than I can hear this dude.
And that everyone is
pretty sure you know what he's going to be saying, although you can't hear him say it. Right, it's all the same shite, doing the rounds.
A convenient line to take because it essentially lets the United States off the hook for its own policies, as if to say, well, if it weren't for the Israeli lobby, then the United States wouldn't be supporting Israel. I think it remains true that the American establishment, if we call it the deep state, the military-industrial complex and so on, does still...
The deep state military-industrial complex! Alex Jones, Gremlin, same language. That's how you can tell a cult. They have their own language. I remember back in the day when I was ball deep in the conspiracy stuff and all that, and like if anybody who wasn't in the conspiracy game came in and tried to listen to it, they'd be like, what the fuck language are you speaking? Federal Reserve, fluoride, what?
Still view Israel as an extremely valuable asset
New World Order
to itself in the region. If that ceased to be the case, then I don't doubt that the US political system would throw Israel under the bus without a second thought. But I tend to think that the strength of the Israeli lobby is more a product of the US-Israeli relationship rather than the actual cause of it. In terms of the political ramifications of the visit, I think the non-attendance at this event of some
I really don't need to listen to this guy. I've got YouTube if I want to listen to talking heads with webcams.
The program, thanks to journalist and political commentator Samuel Geddes joining us from Melbourne, and also thanks to journalist and activist Khalid Barakat.
Should we fucking tell me Tommy Robinson's a journalist?
And that's it with this edition of Press TV's News Review, but stick around, there's plenty more to come here on Press TV.
I mean, it's just pathetic how they round up people for fucking the internet land, stick them on a news station, and people presumably they get that air of authority as if they actually know more than you. Fucking sitting in Melbourne and Vancouver talking about shit that's happening in Gaza and Washington. They can't get any more information using the internet than you can if you wanted to.
Who was granted rare access to the attack site.
Oh, this is the port. This will be interesting.
We are here in the port of Hodeidah, which is the site of an Israeli airstrike that targeted Yemen's fuel and diesel storage tanks earlier this week. The area is a haunting scene of devastation, with twisted and mingled metal pieces and charred remains of storage tanks. The sharp stench of burning oil can still be felt in the surrounding. However, despite the destruction inflicted by the Israeli attack, the port of Hodeidah remains fully operational, according to the governor.
As you can see, despite the misleading reports from pro-Israeli media, the port of Hodeidah stands resilient. Within a mere 24 hours after the attack, it was back in full operational mode. We will rebuild and reconstruct. They won't be successful in getting rid of this port. However, by the will of Allah, we will indeed get rid of Israel.
People of
Hello, magic man in the sky, come down and give me flying carpets and fucking bread and water out of wine. Honestly, man, I just laugh. I just laugh at people who believe that shit. Or be fucking Allah, or fucking the Christian fucking magic man in the sky, or fucking... The list goes on and on and on and on and on. When did human beings become so weak-willed that they have to believe in fairy stories, man? Fucking Tooth Fairy and all sorts.
Also have strongly condemned the attacks. They say Israel is attempting to destroy Yemen's civilian infrastructure.
Sensible man, mate.
To cause widespread
Listening
fuel
to this
and
shit
gas
ain't
shortages
good for your
across the
health,
country.
man. It makes you angry. It gives you false opinions of what's actually happening in the world. You know that
your attacks on the port of
computer
Hodeida
screen
and the
tell
fuel
you
storage
what's
tanks
happening
will
in
not
real life.
impact us in any way. They want us to discontinue attacks on
Go into a
Israel,
local
but
boozer
our
or a
operations
local
will
coffee shop
continue
and speak to
until they
people to
stop
figure out
attacking
what's happening,
Palestinians.
and you'll figure out there isn't a tranny apocalypse.
There are no fuel shortages, as you can see,
Etc.
cars and
etc.
motorbikes
All
are
the
running
shit that the
by the
window
grace of
licking
Allah,
ways of the
fuel and
internet
everything are
can get into
available.
your head.
Ansar Allah officials say the government has taken all necessary measures to ensure that even in a case of a full-scale war with Israel, Yemenis will never have to experience
So the hot
another
order,
humanitarian
that
crisis.
attack in the port was
According
against
to
all their
Ansar
fuel
Allah,
storage
the only thing
tanks.
Israel is able to hit is civilian infrastructure and
Hold on,
to
did
ensure
you just
that
thank the
even in a
magic man in the
case of
sky
a full-scale
again?
war with Israel, Yemenis will never have to experience another humanitarian crisis. According to Ansar Allah, the only thing Israel is able to hit is civilian infrastructure and civilian facilities. This is due to Israel's failure to locate and identify where and how the Yemeni army is launching attacks that have hit the heart of the Israeli regime. Yusuf Maudi, Press TV.
Look at that guy's dick.
The port of
Looks like a
Hodeida.
sword.
More Palestinian civilians have
Oh,
fallen victim
there's some
to a
more
targeted
dead
group of
babies and
Strassel
bodies
idle
for
wars
you.
click Deir al-Bala in central
Just in
Gaza
case
to
you
bring us
were
up to speed on the
missing
latest
out.
developments with regards to the ongoing Israeli genocide all across Gaza. Moti?
A ginger white Iranian.
Yes, Danny, actually the barbaric Israeli attacks are still
the drone
incessant
overhead.
and continuous against different parts of Gaza, basically
Is that a
against
fucking
Khan
camel in the
City,
background?
amid the
That's a
ongoing
donkey.
military operation carried
Little
out
donkey,
by the Israeli
little
occupation forces in
donkey,
that area. The Israeli warplanes actually targeted a group of the Palestinian
Exposing
people
yourself to the
in the
news
outskirts
on
of
a
Hamad
daily
town, claiming the
basis
lives
does
of
drive you
Palestinian
mental.
civilians. They were taking
What it
shelter
can
in
do,
a tent in that area.
especially
However, the Israeli
the way
occupation forces
things are
analyzed
nowadays,
them. In
man.
the
It's just
meantime,
dead
the Israeli
babies
artillery
and
continued
bodies.
to shell different
Or
and
dead
various
soldiers
parts
and
of
people
Khan Yunis
blaming
by
it
the
on Allah
Israeli,
Akbar
as you know,
numbers
by the
when it
Israeli
wasn't.
artillery. More
You know,
Palestinian
just making
casualties
shit
left
up.
behind those ongoing attacks against that area. The current situation is still tragic and dangerous
Like,
for
if
the
you're in
Palestinian
a
people.
social
Anyone
media
moves
bubble and
in
listen
that
to all
area
that
being
pish,
targeted by the Israeli snipers, by
you'll
the
start
Israeli fighter
believing it
drones.
too,
In
man.
addition to the ongoing Israeli chronic artillery shelling, reaching and targeting
Not only does
elsewhere
it drive you
in Khan
mental,
Yunis City.
Danny, but
Basically,
it gives
the
you,
western
it
part
really does
of
give you a
Khan Yunis
false
City,
opinion of what's
which are
happening in the
claimed by
world,
the
you know?
Israeli occupation forces as safe zones and areas, and they demanded the Palestinian people to flee to that area. Now they are attacking that area. Right now, as we speak, we can hear the
Rabbit hole's only good
explosions
for
of the
anybody,
Israeli
mate. You
artillery
get
shelling
closed off
targeting
way
the
of
eastern part
thinking,
of
you
Khan
know?
Yunis City. They
Are
are
they
booming
woke? Are
right
they
now.
awake? Do they
Meanwhile,
know
when
that
it comes to
Federal
Rafah
Reserve
City,
is
as you know,
fucking
the Israeli
private?
military
You know,
operation is still
and
underway and abated
ultimately it
against
just
multiple
leads you
areas
to
of
vote for
Gaza. The
UKIP and
official
Nigel
attack took
Farage.
place in Rafah City,
Or hate
targeted a
Trump.
group of the Palestinian people in the western
I
part
mean,
of Rafah City.
everybody's
Scores of
trying to
Palestinian
wrap the
casualties were
Trump
left behind the attack. In the
assassination
meantime,
attempt up in a
another
conspiracy or
square
like
was
a
targeted and
JFK shit
destroyed
and all that
in
jazz.
the western part
I mean,
of Rafah City,
look
basically
around
in
you,
Tal Sultan
look
neighborhood.
around the internet, folks.
As usual, the
Social
Israeli
media's
occupation forces are
social media is driving people insane and towards absolute hatred towards people they've never even fucking met before. To the extent that I could easily believe that somebody was willing to try and assassinate Donald Trump. Because what was it they call it? Trump derangement syndrome? I mean, you had the same for Biden, you know?
Residential house was
People
targeted
pure
in
hating Biden.
the entrance or
He's a
near the
pathetic
entrance
old
of
man.
Al-Burj refugee camp. It was leveled to the ground.
How do you hate some guys just fucking or Gary Lineker?
Continued to shell and
I mean,
target the
there's
northern
people
part of
out there
Al-Burj
hate
and
Gary
other refugee
Lineker
camps
and
to
Prince
quickly.
Harry.
It
In
was a
fact,
horrifying night for the Palestinian.
Let's go and we'll touch base with Fox. Oh my god. Mate, it's fucking shows like this that drive me insane. Let's see how long I can last.
Reprisal for one of his mates who got hurt.
Now, I'll listen to this talk fucking shite, right? And they'll use quotes from the Times and journalists from the Times and journalists from the Sun and all that jazz, and you're like, they're in the same building as you. They're the same company. Who else, by the way, listen to this one. You know that journalist that just got arrested and jailed over in Russia for spying on the tank factory? Of course they're false allegations. Russia Federation just goes and scoops up random people and charges them with espionage for no reason, you know? They're just doing it. The Wall Street Journal, ran by News Co, or whatever they're called nowadays. It's Rupert Murdoch's mob. Same mob as this. Same mob as the Times. Your talk TV's for your scumbags. This is for your right-wing dickheads to get into your working classes, they used to be called, or scumbag demographic. Then you've got your Times, which is more aimed for your middle class fucking idiots to turn them to the right side of politics. Then you've got the Sun, that's for your scumbags again. Fox News, News Corp, that's for your scumbags over in America, drag them over to the right, keep them to the right and demonise the left. I mean, it's not rocket science to scratch beneath the surface at all these fucking fraudulent outfits that are passing themselves off as journalists reporting the news.
Yeah. And that guy was on the floor. And what he's done now, he's made it incredibly difficult for every police officer to do their job.
Who could you miss?
You think he's damaged? What about Mick's very fair points about the police pulling out in Leeds, not doing their job in Leeds? A lot of people being very frustrated that the police are too scared to go in.
I always think a woman of the people is called Julia Hartley Brewer, double-barreled fucking name,
or labelling them racist. There's no doubt in my mind that is a factor in policing now.
Hang on a minute, no, it's not. The police are cowards. What they did, they ganged up on one bloke, stamped him to the ground, and when they deal with crowds in London, a bunch of extremists in London and a bunch of roamers in Leeds.
Bunch of extremists. Those cunts fucking protesting against a genocide. You're extreme. I mean, you know exactly who he's talking about. You know? Pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas. Go and look at those protests. Like, compare a Tommy Robinson fucking Nazi rally to a pro-Palestinian or a fucking anti-knitting nutjob protest. Right? And tell me what mob you would rather have a fight with.
They do a runner.
So you're saying they're cowards, right?
That's what they're, cowards.
Ian, really appreciate it. Ian, thank you very much indeed. Really
beating up the pro-Palestinian.
Claire Pearsall, I think he has a problem with his earpiece, hearing some of that, but I mean, Mick was totally defending the police officer in this case.
That was quite outstanding. I don't agree with him, but he is entitled to that point of view, and I think that he did make some valid points. I don't think that you can ever justify the kind of reprisal action that we saw.
Yeah,
I really don't.
That's where I am, and it will appear that, well, half views so far coming on this. So I'd love to hear your views. Get in touch if you agree with Mick, do you agree with Ian? Love to hear what you think. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Up next, going to talk to former Met Police DCI Mike Neville to see what he makes of it. This is Talk.
Talk in the bin. Let me see if I can get the top of the hour. Shit. Home of Common Sense. Home of Common Sense. Ian Collins get kicked out the BBC, tried to get a news on Question Time, tried to get the gig in Question Time, didn't get it, now sits on Talk TV slagging the BBC off left, right and centre. But nothing to see here. Mike Graham. I mean, look at the cut of the jib of these motherfuckers. And they're telling you it's the home of common sense. It's the home of fucking right-wing fucking borderline Nazis. Rupert Murdoch's fucking gimps. One dab. On YouTube. This is Talk.
Good morning to you and welcome to the show. This is Talk for Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Now, whether you're listening on DAB Plus radio
Common Sense?
or on your smart speaker,
Why don't you tell us who you work for?
Device, it is a pleasure to have your company.
Might as well be Fox News
and
watching you.
Since I've got the job from me. Very disconcerting, Ian, in the morning instead of in the afternoon. I'm a creature of habit, what can I say? We have got a lot to talk about, and undoubtedly the biggest talking points since yesterday afternoon has been this armed police officer who's now been suspended after he was filmed kicking
I would have thought the army officer getting stabbed up.
GMP that incident. You've seen
but
it
because it's no an Allah Akbar, not bar.
And individuals. The Harry Potter author said that Landy was one of the main reasons she couldn't vote Labour. We'll talk about all of that coming up. This is Talk. Welcome to the home of common sense. I hope you're going to get a lot of common sense also from my guest today.
You get a bit ream than that, former common sense.
Well, good
so
morning
former
to you
fucking
once again.
BBC rejects.
You were a former government advisor before, previously working for a Tory MP who did get re-elected.
Yes,
and
a huge relief.
A huge relief.
There was a
the home of common sense, or is it just talking points for ex-Tory advisors? The home of common sense is a fucking...
Really, really tetchy campaign. It was really difficult and a very, very long night, as you had on polling.
Although, as you know, I'm very open with you about this, and with the MP work for, I would very, very happily have voted against her as one of the problems for the Tory party and one of the main reasons the Tory party lost the election.
She sends her love to you too, Julia.
Hey, I call it as it is. I say it to her face. As she thinks I'm a transphobe, because I don't think that men can become women. So there we are.
I just feel like I'm in the middle here and I have to be the middle ground and the reasonable person.
She's going to be mum.
But yeah,
I don't think men can become women. The tranny apocalypse getting shoved down your throat again, man. Who's experiencing this tranny apocalypse? See, if you're experiencing a tranny apocalypse, I would advise to you, stop hanging around gay bars. Right? If you stop hanging around gay bars, you probably won't even fucking bump into a tranny fucking going through your life and fucking for months.
It was a particularly long night, particularly tetchy campaign, really tough. But we're here with the other side of it, and yet another contest is now brewing.
Yet another contest. We'll get to that because, good God, we're going to be talking about that a lot. Well, or are we? I'm kind of pondering whether or not do we want to talk about that for a long time. It's like PM Keys. We played PM Keys clips yesterday. Peter Cardwell. We make Peter Cardwell watch it, so we don't have to. I know lots of broadcasters. They play out the whole thing. I mean, you live.
It's because he's Talk's chief political editor. What does that mean? It means anything politically has to go through him so he can editorialise it. Oh,
we may as well literally just sack your audience. I mean, he played a clip, apparently the best bit of the exchanges between Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer. I mean, I thought I'd been drugged with a sleeping pill. It was so bad.
It was really, really dull. Thank goodness.
Do you think he did it deliberately, or we're all going to agree on Ukraine?
Well, I think Rishi Sunak actually is probably setting Keir Starmer up so that he can say in a year's time, or whoever the leader is in a year's time, but you said this, and you said this. But really, I was glad it was only half an hour.
I'm a really big fan, particularly when governments have big majorities, and I felt this whether it's a Tory majority or a Labour majority, whichever, that they have a proper opposition that is actually taking them to task, because that is what we need in our democracy. Right, look, let's talk about the biggest story of the day, and undoubtedly this is this police officer who has actually, since I've been in the office, actually been suspended, taken off frontline duty yesterday, but has now been suspended by Greater Manchester Police.
What about the
shared on social
army
media showing
dude getting stabbed up?
A man being kicked in the head and then stamped on by an officer at Manchester Airport. Now, we haven't got video footage of what happened beforehand. What we understand is his armed police response unit at Manchester Airport were called to this situation. It had already kicked off, trying to arrest these men. It was a violent incident. These men were undoubtedly violent. 3 police officers had to be taken to hospital. 1, a female police officer, had a broken nose. You resisting arrest?
Oh my God, not the women. Here's an idea. Don't put fucking women on the front line fighting violent offenders. Because you want to know what? They'll end up with a broken nose and in hospital if they can have to confront a man.
Frank, lie on the floor or face the wall. That's what you do. lots of claims about, you know, whether it was race is an issue because it's white police officers and apparently Muslim men. No, I'm sorry, I'm not into any of that. The police are there's a violent incident, there's some altercation, police are trying to arrest you, you resist arrest, things are going to turn nasty. And I defend the police dealing with people. They don't know how dangerous they're going to be. We've already at this point got a woman police officer with a broken nose. These are, you know, these are dangerous times.
Not just a police officer, a woman police officer. Well, here's the thing. Don't be a fucking police officer if you're not willing to fucking having to tackle violent motherfuckers. Because that's part of policing. And it's as if, like, if the guy broke a guy's nose, it'd be like, ah, fuck it, who gives a shit? Oh, but a woman police officer. Fucking
the video, if you're watching us on our YouTube or connected device on our page, you will be able to see the video. And it is absolutely shocking. Once the man, he's the man in blue shorts and blue top, once he's on the floor, he is being tasered already. He is on the floor. He lifts his head up. He gets a kick in the head from this officer, who then stamps on his head. Now, it's a concrete floor. You kick someone in the head, or you stamp on their head on a concrete floor, there is every possibility you could break the skull and they could die. I'm sorry, there's every possibility of that.
Broken jaw
that
at least,
is not
but
at that point self-defence, is it? Is that in any way justifiable?
No. No, and if you look at the clip just prior to that, he's also the person on the floor has had a knee to his kidney, which we all know that hurts.
I've got no issue with that. If he was fighting with a police officer,
exactly, he's a hard job to do.
Yeah.
Just beat them up too hard.
They are
Right, what about this? So they're going to obsess over this. Fuck about nut job being over in America. Fuck Biden. Who gives a fuck about the... Oh, was that the officer stabbed? No. Still going on about it. So are they literally not going to touch on anything else, you know? That's it. Back soon? Did you leave? Right, so that is all they're talking about. You're fucking shitting me. It's titillation, innit? It's got good video footage with it. That's all you need. Good video footage. Fuck it be news or anything like that. I can't stomach that. Look how healthy she looks. Right. 15 minutes ago. Get top of our news. It's funny, I happened to catch Jeremy Vile yesterday for a couple of minutes, and he was talking about watching GB News. I was just watching it because it was in the background, just like one of the same thing.
Amid protests last night at Rochdale Police Station.
Labour's green energy revolution. The Prime Minister will unveil plans to set up Great British
Man
Energy
child, we stab an officer. His name's Anthony something.
Across the countryside and off the coast of Britain.
And the Tory leadership race, Tom Tugendhat has thrown his hat into the ring.
Just ignore that. See if his name was fucking Abdul Mohammed.
So at the moment,
the news would be all over it. But it's getting blacked out, according to conspirators, because it was obviously terror.
Behind his crusade against the tabloids. Take a listen.
Still today, the press, the tabloid press, very much enjoy painting her as being paranoid. But she wasn't paranoid.
I don't know if he's talking about his mum or Markle, but the tabloid press are out to get this guy. That's why they're demonising his missus, who people in the UK don't even know who the fuck she is before she got involved with him. Are very few. And the tabloid press are out to demonise him because him using a King's Counsel is trying to go after the tabloid press for all the phone hacking scumbaggery they done. I even heard this morning that somebody was like, it's really bad him using the royal courts to go after the tabloids. You're like, they're all royal courts, you daft fuck. How else is he meant to go after the tabloids apart from not using the fucking courts, which are all his dads? Seriously, man, people have blinkers on when it comes to some of this shit. Massive blinkers. So if you're out there and you hate Prince Harry, or you hate Gary Lineker, who you've never met in your life, I mean, like, object to the royal family as an institution. You've never met that dude.
He's blaming his fight with the tabloids for the rift in his family. Do you think that's fair?
Oh, look. Oh, it's you fucking dickheads that keep fucking talking about it. I've just done Sky News and BBC. They don't give a flying fuck because it's Prince Harry doing an interview. Oh, breaking news. But all the right-wing fucking Rupert Murdoch, Nigel Farage, press are all over it because that's who Prince Harry and his King's Counsel are going after, because they were hacking everybody's phones from Princess Diana to dead little girls' parents. I don't know if anybody can remember any of this shite, man. And look at the state of that fucking retard. Ooh! Fucking, like, he looks like his fucking face is eating itself.
Looks
like he's got a fucking cleft palate.
Not taking responsibility. Well, Harry, the tabloids didn't make you go and sit down with Oprah and...
The tabloids hacked his phone, he's going after them, now they're doing everything in their power to fucking demonise him. And this is tabloid TV. That's all it is. It's not news. It's like calling the fucking News of the World or Sun newspaper a fucking newspaper. Might as well be a comic book strip. Same with this shite.
Clean your dirty laundry in public. Didn't make you write the book Spare. Didn't make you do the tell-all Netflix revelations with Meghan about how awful your life was in the royal family. Quite frankly, no one cares. And if you look at his brother...
Quite frankly, nobody cares. You care. You care. Why are you talking about it? Why are you talking about a fucking guy having an interview on another fucking channel blaming the tabloids? He's trying to defend the fucking tabloids and their scumbaggery of their phone hacking. Never to mention all the rest of the shite they do.
Prince William, who's going through a hell of a lot at the moment with his dad being sick, his wife being sick. It's a stark contrast, isn't it, to how they hold themselves, how they behave themselves.
A more sympathetic view, though, might be that since the start of his life, media intrusion has made his whole family life very, very difficult. Obviously, the tragic situation over his mum dying. It's going to stress out any family, isn't it, having to fight those kind of battles in such a public way.
But...
Phone hacking? Hello, McFly! Hello, McFly! The whole reason you are going after him is because he's trying to get his held account. Piers Morgan, Rupert Murdoch, News of the World had to shut down. It became so fucking toxic. The Sun somehow managed to survive. And you listen to these outlets and they're like, oh, well, a Times journalist, that's a Rupert Murdoch lackey. Oh, the Sun said, Rupert Murdoch lackey. Fox News reported, Rupert fucking Murdoch lackeys. Fucking...
But Prince William did go through the same thing, and he's not run off to America, you know, giving salacious interviews about his family. Anyway, let us know what you think. gbnews.com/yoursay. But first, here's the news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Fleet Street are out to crucify Prince Harry because he's trying to get Fleet Street held accountable for their phone hacking and all the scumbaggery that they do and are still doing.
Cheers.
Ben, thank you and good morning. The top stories from the GB newsroom. A police officer has been suspended from all duties after a video emerged appearing to show a person being kicked in the head during an altercation at Manchester Airport.
Is that a deep fake?
Greater Manchester Police says 3 of its officers were seriously injured during that incident when they attended to reports of an assault in the airport car park. That included a female officer who suffered a broken nose. The force says the assault of its officers happened before the events that you
Why
can
the
see
fuck
here
does she
in the
own a
video.
vagina?
They've now
Got
referred the
anything to
case
do
the
with it?
Independent Office for
I
Police
have
Conduct
no
for a
idea.
full independent investigation. Security specialist Will Geddes told GB News those protesting over the video should consider the full context.
There'd been a four-person confrontation with some police officers. The police officers had responded. These individuals counterattacked and...
Imagine that, the authoritarian right-wing fucking borderline fascist Nazi cunts defending cops volleying somebody who's on the floor in the face. Imagine that. This is what we've got to look forward to, people. Freedom!
The fullest context here. We need to see the full video from certainly the airport CCTV to see exactly what happened and any other bystander video. But to react in this particular way, I don't think is acceptable.
A man has been charged with attempted murder after the stabbing of a uniformed army officer in Kent. 24-year-old Anthony Essan was arrested near his home in Rochester just 30 minutes after the violent attack. He's also been charged with possession of an offensive weapon in a public place. He's due to appear in court later today. It's after...
Damn it. Damn it. Could the guy's name no be Mohammed fucking... Look at that, man. Amazing. It was last night. They did play better in the second half, man, but fucking... Do you support this type of policing? I mean, come on, fuck. What kind of country are we if a Muslim being kicked in the head cause he's more outraged than a native soldier in uniform at his army barracks being butchered and stabbed 70 times in front of his wife by an immigrant? The guy wasn't in it. Like, how fucking retarded are these people? Anthony Essan. Is he an immigrant? Sounds like a Christian African to me. With a name Anthony. Right, when was it? When did they fucking stick this out? Alright, so this was before 9 bells this morning. So before the name of the dude was doing the rounds, because I'm assuming he would have been in court this morning at 9 o'clock. Being that he was arrested yesterday, in court first thing, charged and whatnot. And they're still peddling the lies, man. Still, 27th of July, are you going to be there with your beers and shouting, "Oh, Tommy, they're going to screen another documentary." Uniting the kingdom. Dividing the kingdom, you'll find, mate. Why don't you go and confront the pro-Palestinian march that will be on, man? Maybe you'll get some fights and shit. I cannot just sit back and watch this country being destroyed. Man, it really is sad and pathetic. Look at the shit he's retweeting, man. Or whoever's running his fucking shithole of a fucking... You want to see what a cesspool? Twitter has turned into. Just look at all these messages. "Hello, Lord, I'm so ecstatic. You love me. Hi, Lord, my name is Sophie. I'm extremely fucking my cunt's all wet. You are a blessed person in the universe. How you doing, Lord? I'm so content. I mean, it's all spam. It's all women fucking trying to get a guy's dick hard and then sell them some shite. I'm so wicked right now for you, Lord. How you doing, Lord? I'm so thankful. Greet, send me your pants. Hello, Lord, my name is McKinley. I'm extreme. I mean, it's all shite. All of it is shite and retards. Twitter has turned into an absolute fucking cesspool, man. They are playing the lottery with the safety of our children. It's unforgivable. How many... In fact, people do fall for it. People are falling for it. I mean, he'll probably get a team of a couple of thousand.
In Gillingham, just before
Bear in mind, we stay in a country of 66 plus million.
He's currently in hospital in a serious but stable condition.
Yeah, let's hope he recovers.
And in the last few moments, we've just heard that former Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick will stand for the leadership of the Conservative Party. He's the third choice to throw the hat into the ring after Tom Tugendhat, the former security minister.
Oh man, I'll crack the jokes. GB News and Conservative Party.
The public. That's according to a report in The Independent. Mr Tugendhat and Mr Jenrick come after Shadow Home Secretary James Cleverly also announced his own leadership bid. Mr Tugendhat ran unsuccessfully for the leadership in 2022, but he managed to secure
I need
a role
to get myself
in the
into
cabinet.
bookies and see if
He
they'll take
says
my
the
money for
Conservatives have lost the
Vaj.
trust of the British people
Vaj
because they failed to
2029.
deliver lower taxes and lower immigration.
You've seen what's just happened in the recent election. We lost
gold
the trust of the British
bars
people because
for
we failed to
everybody.
deliver. And
Yes.
I've got a track record of delivering,
I'm
whether that's
going
in
to
the army and
deliver.
operations in Iraq and Afghanistan, or whether that's in Parliament standing up to those who would threaten us, those authoritarian dictators. And that's got me sanctioned by countries like China and Russia and Iran. And, of course, I've been delivering in government, you know, as the security minister, making sure that we are safe. And I can't talk about all the areas that I've been working on as security minister for obvious reasons, but absolutely prioritising the interests and security of the British people is exactly what I've done.
In the US,
Gold bars for
let
everybody.
his personal ambitions stand in the way of saving democracy as he addressed the nation during a televised speech from the Oval Office last night. In his first comments since announcing his intention to drop out of the presidential race, the 81-year-old said it had been the honour of his life to serve the American people as president. But explaining his decision, he said the future of the United States must come first, and it's time to pass the torch on to the next generation.
In recent weeks, it's become clear to me that I need to unite my party in this critical endeavor. I believe my record as president, my leadership in the world, my vision for America's future, all merit a second term. But nothing can come in the way of saving our democracy. That includes personal ambition.
And a renowned microsculptor has unveiled the world's smallest Olympic mascot, which we understand fits into the eye of a needle. The handmade microscopic version of the official mascot, the smallest in Olympic history, can be seen holding a medal which was crafted from 24-carat gold and is roughly the size of a blood cell. British sculptor Dr. Willard Wigan used an eyelash as a paintbrush. He worked between heartbeats using his pulse as a jackhammer. And if you're wondering why, he says he enjoys the reaction when people see his work. And some more breaking news to finish with. Andy Murray has officially withdrawn from the singles event at the Paris Olympics. The two-time gold medalist is still not fully recovered from the back surgery he had last month and believes the men's doubles, where he's playing with Dan Evans, offers his best chance of another medal. More on that soon. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. More from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thanks, Tatiana. 10:08. Ben and Miriam with you on Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Sad news about Andy Murray.
Very.
Is that going to be his last? That's it then, is it? He's gone.
I think so. So hopefully he will get a medal in that doubles event. So he'll be going out on a high. But I know you're a big fan, so you'll be watching closely.
I am. And I know lots of the viewers don't like me for being a fan of him because of his comments about England all those years ago.
But the Olympics is Great Britain, isn't it? So Scotland, Wales and England together. So hopefully that's a bit of unity. Thank you so much for sending in all your emails. There's loads and loads of comments, particularly about this breaking news story about the police incident yesterday at Manchester Airport. Overwhelmingly supportive of the police in these emails. Somebody saying the police always get the blame, pointing out that they were filmed at the end of the incident rather than the build-up. Very difficult for the police, isn't it?
It is. It is very difficult. And I just tweeted something.
At least they're meant to be professional, man. Once you get somebody subdued, you're not meant to start picking pocket them because they upset you.
All they do all the time
is
go abroad, put their lives on the line to protect us, or in this case, protect the airport and the passengers, when they're just going to get stick for doing what they should be doing, which is being authoritative. And if this was America, those people, quite frankly, would have been shot the moment they smacked that young officer's nose into pieces. They would have been shot.
Oh, quite frankly, so you wanted them shot now?
Here. It's a completely different scenario. We don't have guns, but, you know, a bit of force and a bit of authority needed in that scenario where you're at an airport, they've got guns, which could have been taken away from them.
I would love to kick you in the face, mate, and make you look more like a fucking Cleft Palate victim than you already do.
Violently beaten
You're
up,
a daft
female
little
officer
prick.
had her
What age is he? He must be about 18.
Obviously, they're going to do everything they can to stop.
Seriously though, what age is that wee prick?
It does
About
look like he
18?
went too far, but the alternative is
Doesn't even know
we have police who are
fucking
not willing to use force at all, and that's
Tony
even more
Tony the
dangerous.
Tiger's secret ingredient
Former
fucking
Met officer, I won't name you obviously, but he said, unless you've been a cop all alone with a suspect in the middle of the night in a fight for your life and you're being punched, kicked and so on, and you're exhausted, your opinion on the police
You're
use
right,
of force
Denny,
means
where
very
is
little
his
to me.
mask, mate?
That's from a retired Met officer of
He's a
30 years
COVID victim.
in East London. And there was someone else who said that they were a firearms officer at Heathrow a couple of years back, and they were, I can't find the email now, but they were saying, they were criticising the use of force. They said, no excuse, even if you're exhausted, even if your adrenaline's going, that's what you're trained for, you shouldn't be using that level of force.
Yeah, and of course there always will be times when they overstep the mark, and obviously this is very damaging for the police, but we desperately do need our police to be able to use force when they need. Anyway, moving on to another story, 2 more Conservative MPs have now thrown their hats in the ring to be the party's next leader. We've got Tom Tugendhat, he's already declared, said that he was going to lead the
our
ECHR.
next leader.
And
you hear that?
take a listen to him speaking now.
No, I've been very, very clear. I am prepared to make any decision.
No politician in the history of the fucking world has ever been fucking clear.
I am prepared.
You specky bastard.
ECHR or indeed any other
Has anybody ever actually seen him? Or I still don't know his name, and I've just said it 2 seconds ago.
Robert
I fix your
Jenrick is
hair
throwing
and you
his
look
hat
lovely.
into the ring to become the next Tory leader as well.
Does
Your
look a
thoughts
bit
on
dead in the
Robert,
eyes right enough,
Jenrick?
man,
He was, of
but
course, I've said
to
to you
be
before this
expected
week,
working
maybe
for
cruelly
Nigel
nicknamed
Badge
Robert
News.
Generic at times by some of his critics.
I think he's gone through a transformation in the last year or so. I think being in the Home Office and seeing firsthand how badly immigration was dealt with really made him realise that we need a lot stronger policies. So a very interesting new entrant there.
Hang on. I was speaking to some, I won't say whose team, but someone who's running for leader. I was speaking to their team in Parliament this week, and I said, oh, what do you make of Robert
you're a little
Jenrick?
Parliament
And they said, he only really
listen to
started
me,
speaking
I'm
out about migration and being forceful.
I'm fair and balanced and impartial. Yeah, I was in Parliament with one of the Conservatives. With one of the many. I'm pretty sure there's over 100 bars in Parliament, and all subsidised by the taxpayer. So you can get the cheapest pint you can probably get in London is in the House of Parliament.
With Rishi Sunak and holding him to account on migration after he knew the writing was on the wall and that the Tories would lose the election and there'd be an opportunity for him to run as leader.
Well, it was actually quite some time ago that he became the immigration minister, saw it firsthand and started realising that the only really route...
I agree, and I'm in the exact same boat in the sense that, see man, see if the cops are going to huckle you, you don't fucking fight them. I remember one time in my misspent youth, and I was unfortunate enough to get arrested at Ibrox. Right, and the main stand in Ibrox is a holding cell, and then they stick you in the meat wagon and take you up to Govan Cop Shop. And I was fucking handcuffed to this wee fucking arsehole, man. And he was going, don't tell them nothing, mate. Yeah, fucking. I'm like, shut the fuck up, mate. I want processed and fucking out ASAP. And this wee cunt's fucking wee arsehole, man. So, if you get huggled with the cops, I say keys. Just about that cop done there, man. He just rattled the guy's face right in the floor. And it's like, it's not even beating him up. See, kicking somebody in the face like that, you can break their jaw. Break their jaw quite easily. I know that for experience. I ain't voting for nobody that wants to trans kids. Devastator. Can I ask you, man? Like, on your day-to-day life, away from the windy-licking ways of the internet, do you witness the tranny apocalypse? Now, I'm in the same boat in the sense that I don't want anybody getting inside people's fucking kids' heads and trying to install any ideology, including right-wing political ideologies, as well as fucking all the fucking sexual ideologies that are out there as well. I'm exactly in that boat. That's why I would raise the voting age to 25. Save people from fucking... save the children from political parties and other people with agendas and ideologies wanting to get into schools and put that into kids' heads. And I didn't vote for anybody. I held my own election, and the conclusion I came to, the world is... the people are gone, man. Everybody's just polarised and ready to kick fuck out the other side. There's no middle ground anymore. There's no middle option. Well, mate, they were the armed response cops, but I don't think they actually had guns. I think our armed response are fucking tasered up. I might be mistaken, because it was airport cops, you know what I mean? So maybe they do carry, maybe, but I'm pretty sure the normal cops tried to deal with it. A woman police officer get injured, called the armed units, and they rocked up. It's Britain, Stan.
You know, maybe that's true, maybe that's a bit cynical. But we'll see. I mean, we've got 3 confirmed entrants already. I think...
Here's a wee interesting story. So, I had time to kill before grabbing my bus the other night, so I bounced into this wee boozer just for a quick drink. I ended up speaking to this painter and decorator that was at the bus stop with me. It turns out that he's into his YouTube. He'd watched some of my shit before, but like just jibber-jabbering where he was like your average Glaswegian, you know. He was a painter and decorator. Lived on the wrong side of the tracks. Done a bit of time in the jail and all that jazz. And he's on the same page, man. Like, a lot of people are just pissed off. I just full with fucking hatred.
Nominations have to be in by Monday, and 10 MPs on the nomination form is quite a lot now that there are only 121 Conservative MPs in Parliament. So will there be people who just don't get on the ballot?
How many endorsements do they need from their colleagues?
So 10 altogether. But if there's only 120 MPs, Conservative MPs, and many of them will not be willing to put their name to anyone at this point, there may be quite high-profile names who just don't get enough nominations to join the race.
So they need 10 now. What was it previously when the Tories were in government?
Well, they changed the rules every time. I think when Boris initially stepped down, it was about 15, but then it was 100 for the second leadership race in 2022. Wow. So big difference.
Yeah, OK. All right, let's move on to our top story this morning. So a police officer has been suspended from duty after that video emerged of him kicking a man lying on the floor during an arrest at London's Heathrow Airport. We're joined now by GB News Home and Security Editor Mark White. Good morning, Mark. What's the latest, please?
Well, we could take another look at the video, I think. An award it is, of course, distressing viewing as it shows the moment this officer is kicking someone in the face and then stamping on their head as well. Now, what I think is...
Here's the thing, right? By some of the accounts I've heard about this thing, the 2 dudes were fighting. You know, people, you know what it's like in airports, man. Like, tensions are high, to say the least. So these 2 people started fighting, apparently, and the cops tried to intervene, and that's when the cops got assaulted. Now, it's not came out in the wash yet whether the cunt turned round and fucking hit the woman, or whether it was frailing arms, or it was just like getting caught in the melee as to why the cops got hit, or whether the people did attack the cops. Mate, you don't attack any cops, man. Like, it makes sense you're only going to turn out to be the loser. And that goes for male cops as well. It doesn't matter if they've got a vagina or a penis, man. You don't fucking... It's not a good idea to start fighting with the cops. But we don't know whether they started fighting with the cops. Apparently it was 2 dudes fighting with each other. And whether in the melee the cops tried to intervene and got hot with a flailing arm or something like that. Who knows? Time will tell. But this is definitely getting used as a big, massive distraction today, you know. Fuck knitting nut job. Fuck the people getting killed in Gaza. Fuck Biden stepping down. Oh, a cop kicked a guy in the face.
Key to this is always.
Probably wouldn't be the first. Probably wasn't the only guy getting kicked in the face with a cop yesterday.
Quite a few minutes before this, police at Manchester Airport had received reports of an assault. They had managed to pinpoint a suspect on CCTV. He was in an airport car park at Terminal 2 at a ticket machine. When officers went to try to detain the man,
I think there's
then
no
there was
need
a
for that
violent
dirty kick,
fight
like,
that erupted.
If you
not
want
just
to
involving
deal
the
out a
man,
wee
but
bit
some
of
other people as well.
punishment or retribution,
And 3 police
why not just do what you
were
done?
effectively kicked to the ground and punched one
Bang on the
female
back,
police
right into the
officer,
kidney. That hurts
smashed
like
in the
a
face and
motherfucker.
broke her nose. She is actually
not only does it subdue you,
we've sort of blurred her face to protect her identity and the identity
and
of others.
Sorry to interject, she seems like quite a small lady, maybe quite young as well, and you can imagine a man, you know, with a forceful punch on someone like that was going to do some damage.
So, but did he punch her? Nobody's came out and said that's what's happened. Did they say it caught in the melee and a fucking rogue elbow or a rogue backhand hit her in the nose? Because you best believe the cops are making the most out of this assault to water down the video footage that's doing the rounds.
Well, indeed. I mean, she's a firearms officer, but the thing is, she's been smashed in the face. She's clearly, you know, quite traumatised by that. She's in tears. She's kind of staggering pretty much all over the place, and not much.
That's what you want for your armed police, innit? Boom, boom, boom. That's why we shouldn't have women in the army and women in the front line of the police force, man, because as soon as they come up with a bit of force, they're fucked. Is that me being sexist? I don't want to put women in harm's way.
Much good to anybody, understandably. And that, I think, just gives you maybe an indication of the violence that came before this. So these officers that you see in the video are officers, most of them at least, are officers that are
Pete, I don't think it was Rome, I think it was Manchester Airport.
From their colleagues that are being assaulted by this group of men. And the way that the modern sort of police radio system works as well, when you have a...
Right. She wasn't getting assaulted by a group of men. She was there to try and stop 2 men fighting. So this is where the devil's in the detail, right? Did one of the guys turn round to her and start boxing her, right? Which I don't think would have happened, because she would have been able to protect herself with a wee fucking baton or something, you know, if she fucking seen some cunt squaring up to her. So I'm imagining she's tried to separate this thing, try to get in between the 2 dudes, and somehow got hurt accidentally. Doesn't justify it, but that's where my head's at. And let's not forget, where my head was at yesterday was bang on the money, whereas like your scumbag fucking Tommy Robinson cult are still trying to pass it off as, let me see, where the fuck is it? Traffic wardens. Man. Well, maybe he's deleted it from his page now. Let me see, that was 3 hours ago. Where's all the pish? Oh, fuck, man. This cult is strong. 5 hours ago. Oh, there's the dude there. Right, so it was a black dude. Right, it's not an Allah Akbar Nutbear. His name's Anthony, which means that he's like, well, to me, I would stab in the dark. His family are Christian of origin. He's wearing a fucking NASA jacket. He's a fucking, literally a spaceman. Hold on. Reposted 16 hours ago. There is more angle and spotlight on a violent Muslim taking a boot to the face in an airport than an attempted murder of a soldier. Nah, it's dropped off a news site, and You seen me just show that story getting reported. It was all over the news yesterday. It's all over the news today. You can argue where it is on the news cycle, right? If it was an Abdul that was doing it, you best believe it would be top of the news cycle, especially on GB News and Talk TV. But it wasn't, so it's dropped down the news cycle because it was just a random fucking crackpot who thought he was a spaceman or something. So, I mean, scary looking dude from Ben. Apparently he's got mental issues. Mate, he's a fucking spaceman. I know, man. Mental issues, man. I don't know about you. I always walk about wearing a NASA jacket. And a fucking weird balaclava fucking thing. Damn Manchester. And how is that news? Them WWTC? Same shite as yesterday. Did you see Nate and Nutjob? Aye. Our enemies are your enemies. Give me more bombs, bullets and money and I'll finish the job quicker. Genocide. Apparently he's got mental issues. Scary looking dude. Never get a straight answer on NASA. He was born on the moon. He's a moon man. Maybe this is the aliens coming to fucking get us, man. Right, what time are we at? 11:22. I've done a lot of the newsies. Let's have a wee look, see what the French and shit are saying.
Langage. Après, je sais qu'il y a des danseurs et d'autres personnes qui estiment que pour eux c'est un langage.
Dans l'actualité aussi de ce jeudi, le Proche-Orient devant le Congrès à Saint-Denis. Être à la fête, on du positif. Saint-Denis en Seine-Saint-Denis, elle abrite le Stade de France sur un lieu emblématique.
Oh non, tu ne vois.
Les épreuves vont déjà commencer à suivre aujourd'hui.
Stumbled, I've got the wrong France 24. This is the one fucking for the frogs. Where's the one for the Brits? There we go, man.
And the display here includes another totemic
My
object for
mistake.
fans of all sports,
They
the
speak
Olympic
foreign
torch in
language,
its
the
Parisian
foreign mucks.
incarnation.
Public address since last week.
Useful idiot to Kamala.
Get the
Thank you
top
for
of
joining
the
us.
news.
September.
Thank you for
Over to
joining
you.
us.
We're always together
E-pop.
with E-pop.
Yeah, what's wrong with E-pop? Was that no what they sing in Korea or something? Is that K-pop?
Thank you for joining us here on Paris Direct. I'm Delano D'Souza. The headlines this hour. Joe Biden says America is at an inflection point. The U.S. president defending his record while he explained to the nation
Joe
why he's
Potato
passing
didn't
the
resign,
baton
I
to
see.
Kamala Harris.
Aye, mate, he's
The Israeli Prime
bunkered
Minister
down
to
for
head
the
to
next
the White
6
House
months,
after
is it?
addressing U.S. lawmakers. In his speech to Congress, Benjamin Netanyahu minimized the civilian casualty count in Gaza.
He's meeting with Biden, he's meeting with Harris, and then he's fucking off to meet with Trump. He's covering all his bases.
And
Covering his
labelled
bases and
protesters
covering
in
his
the
faces.
US useful idiots. And
All right,
heavy flooding
55.
reported in low-lying areas of Taiwan. This after Typhoon Gai-Mi made landfall, the deadliest storm to hit the island in some 8 years.
Paris direct. Oh, they'll be on about the Olympics, won't they? Starts in a week. Anybody excited?
US
about the
President Joe
Olympics?
Biden addressed the nation days after he made the historic decision to pull out of the race. The 81-year-old defended his record and said it merited a second term. He once again reiterated his endorsement for his vice president. Biden called Kamala Harris experienced, tough, and capable. Laurent Bechecher reports.
My fellow Americans.
In his first public address since last week's shock announcement, a defiant Joe Biden said he stood by his decision to drop out of the presidential race.
Why have they got a robot?
Nothing.
Joe Biden.
Come in the way of saving our democracy. That includes personal ambition.
Can France 24 know
So
afford
I
a
decided
fucking
the
English
best way
speaking
forward
dude?
is to pass the torch to a new generation.
The US president had been under growing pressure to step aside following a disastrous debate performance in June, which raised troubling questions
I love the
over
way
his
they keep
age
saying that's
and
the start.
ability to lead the country.
The guy had been senile for
And
some
while
time
Biden
now,
eventually
man.
relented after he was shown to be trailing to Donald Trump in the polls, he rejected accusations he was unfit to govern, saying he would keep working for the American people in the remaining 6 months of his presidency.
Why have they got a robot
Biden also
reading
gave a
this
ringing
out?
endorsement to his
I could do a
designated
better
successor,
job
Kamala
than this
Harris,
fucking French
saying she was
robot.
the Democratic Party's best hope of
Genuinely
defeating
think
Trump
that's
in
a
November.
robot.
I'd like to thank our great Vice President Kamala
Oh,
Harris.
my phone's making noisy.
She's experienced, she's tough, she's capable. She's been an incredible partner to me and a leader for our country. Now the choice is up to you, the American people.
In a 10-minute address that felt like a farewell speech, Biden defended his record on foreign
Did you see
policy,
No,
civil rights,
mate,
the
that was
environment,
the Man City. That was the
He
boys'
also
club.
repeatedly warned the country was at a crucial historical juncture,
Well, then you'll like
the
this,
outcome
man.
of which could determine the
Don't know if you caught this earlier, right? But look at the Rangers fans at Trevor Francis's testimonial last night, man. And then if I go to, how do I get you my feed? I don't even know how to fucking work this thing. Rangers away fans are amazing. Oh fucking hell, man, check in nipples out on that. Oh fucking hell, man. Wasn't expecting that. I'm not a bus, I identify as a train. Is that Glasgow buses, man? No, Translink. Translink! Oh, man. Get the fucking dog on him, man. Anyway, I'm looking for the Rangers fans.
Okay, now. This is packed. Look at the lads. Jeez. Right, lads.
Where's the clips of them playing fucking... Rangers fans were singing Caledonia last night, man. Where's the dude there? But Tommy Robinson, he's got black pals, so it's all good. Is that table tennis? Fuck, man, I'm getting sucked into... It looks like Glasgow, man, but it could be anywhere. Right, this is it. I love you, and I think about you all the time. Caledonia, This was me a few nights ago, 3 nights ago, in a wee boozer, man. And that dude's from Birmingham, funnily enough, man. It's a small world. So did I have, was I Thundercats and had sight before sight? Think about you all the time. There's a wee bit of Rangers worship for me. Oh, I know.
fate of the world for decades to come.
History is in your hands.
We can now bring in our international affairs editor, Angela Diffley. Angela, Laurent there in his report said it felt like a farewell speech. Kind of did, didn't it? What did you make of it?
Well, I think, clearly, first of all,
last night with the first pictures of that
idea,
dude that stabbed up the soldier
matters more. I was going to say trumps everything.
And
but
even then I was like,
right,
he's black, he's no, he doesn't look like an Allah Akbar Nutbar. I can't remember last time I seen an Allah Akbar Nutbar stab fuck out some cunt with an Assad jacket on, you know what I mean?
The idea lies with you. It really was about the very, very big stuff. He did not address this issue of how much concealment there had been coming up to this decision. There's been a fair amount of comment about this.
What was it, 4-3
Celtic? Very many people
I didn't watch the game. I think it was on in the middle of the night. I think it was over in the States.
The point is,
you just need Will Smith back.
And he elegantly said it's about passing the torch onto the next generation. That's something everybody can get to grips with. He also scotched the idea that the Republicans are putting out that, if you're not fit to do a second term, then why don't you resign now?
Testimonial.
I
don't know if you remember, he played for Rangers for a couple of weeks back in Graham Souness these days.
In January of next year.
You've seen the one that
he hopes to see reform of the Supreme Court before then. That will be difficult because, of course, Congress is very divided. That's going to be a difficult thing to get through. But he hopes to concentrate that. And on foreign policy issues, we got a hint of that. Ukraine, he again cannot get anything further.
I was watching the Friendly Live last night.
Arms deliveries to Ukraine and move forward on a
and I heard it, man. The fucking fans wouldn't shut the fuck up. It was good, man. Honestly, there's just sung through the whole thing. And you looked at the rest of the stadium and it was sporadically it wasn't packed. Then you looked at the Rangers section, man, and it's fucking jam-packed. Say 7,000,
but now we had this mad dash.
Crowd was 17,000, fuck's sake, man. We supplied more or less the majority of it.
Presumably to top that Democratic ticket. But all this time we've had Donald Trump, who's been preparing his attacks to take on Joe Biden.
I'll need to get the lyrics that they're singing, man.
He has to shift his focus to Kamala Harris.
Pretty sure it's easily found.
How is Trump doing now that he has to shift targets, considering he's been up against a woman before in the form of Hillary Clinton? But with Hillary Clinton, she was a very divisive figure. Kamala Harris is different to take on.
Mate, that painter and decorator I was speaking to went to Germany, man. He said, apart from the football, right, but as to be expected, Scotland fans don't go to the things for the football. They go for the party. Said it was immense, mate.
They have got real momentum behind
Apparently
them.
done Scotland really proud, you know what I mean?
As far as
Whereas the England fans, on the other hand, bitching and moaning about their team and fucking ripping shit up and fighting with folk,
as Vice President said she hadn't visited the border and that was her responsibility. Immigration.
55 will need to find that, mate. I'm pretty sure I'll get it to
She will definitely try to focus on abortion because Trump knows he has a problem with abortion. He has never said anything quite as sweeping, but JD
it was just dead weird. I never even I forgot Rangers were playing Birmingham in the friendly 3 nights ago. I'd forgot about it. Even though I paid the £20 for the fucking 3-4 friendly pass
in terms of their personalities, we've already seen Trump pushing this idea. Number one, he keeps mispronouncing her name. It's thought that's a kind of a
there's nothing better than watching a Rangers game on RTV, you know what I mean? You'll get, what was it, Andy Liddell last night and that other dude, and you just hear them talking, they're like, that was a great ball. And you're like, that's the way all commentators should talk.
Any job she's had in the past is because she is a non-white. And she has begun already saying, a good line early on. I'm a prosecutor.
Kicking this race ball about. Nobody gives a fuck anymore. I'm 42 and that fucking race shit has left the station, man. Nobody gives a flying fuck what colour or creed you are, man. How you conduct yourself.
Joe Biden is due to sit down with Israel's Prime Minister today. This a day after Benjamin Netanyahu addressed Congress and vowed to achieve total victory in Gaza. But Netanyahu's speech was criticised by many. While addressing US lawmakers yesterday, he called demonstrators who had gathered at the Capitol to protest his visit, quote, Iran's...
Mate, I'm yet to do a wee trip like that, but it's definitely on my bucket list, man.
Many anti-Israel protesters, many choose to stand with evil. They stand with Hamas. They stand with...
That's part of the scam. If they convince you evil's real and that there's demons out there and shit like that, then you'll go running towards the Bible or the Quran or whatever. The gods, the magic men in the sky to save you from the evil.
With rapists and murderers. They stand with people who came into the kibbutzim into a home. The parents hid the children, the 2 babies, in the attic, in a secret attic. They murder the families, the parents. They find the secret latch to the hidden attic, and then they murder the babies. These protesters, stand with them. They should be ashamed of themselves.
Now, Netanyahu.
What about all the assassinations that's happening with the IDF inside Gaza? You know what I mean? You can't. There's no good people in fucking warfare, man.
Netanyahu will also be meeting with the presumed Democratic nominee for the presidency today. He'll be sitting down with Kamala Harris after meeting Biden and hostage families at the White House. Now, tomorrow, Netanyahu will be flying to Mar-a-Lago to meet with Donald Trump. Israel says it's retrieved the bodies of 5 people taken during the October 7th attack. They include the bodies of 1 hostage and 4 soldiers. Now, according to the IDF, it was able to retrieve the remains during an operation in Khan Yunis on Wednesday. The 5 had been listed among 120 hostages still being held in Gaza. For more on this story, here's Jordana Miller reporting from Jerusalem.
We're learning that the Israeli army discovered and gleaned the intel on where these bodies were.
Remember, I don't know if how long people's memory is, right? The capital of Israel used to be Tel Aviv. Now they've moved it to Jerusalem, and that was all in the behest of Trump. A.O. Kane moving the home of Judonia to Jerusalem, which is meant to be a city for all fucking nationalities, but not under a Zionist ideology, which puts Jews ahead of other people. Even native people that fucking stay there.
From some of the interrogations, and that it was part of the reason Israel went back into Khan Yunis on Monday and issued new evacuation orders. Clearly,
exactly,
not only is Israel interested in pushing out
selective
and dismantling
information.
whatever Hamas
You're getting
fighters that had regrouped
I can believe there might be some meat to the bones
that led
of
them
what
to
he said
believe
there.
there were 5 bodies in a tunnel
but
in Khan Yunis. And
to
indeed,
not
they
take into
recovered them.
context
These were all
everything
Israelis
since the
that Israeli army had already
1940s,
declared dead.
when Israel
They
had
were
to
killed on
murder
October
all
7th,
sorts
on the day
to make
of
space for them.
Hamas's deadly surprise attack.
I'm pretty sure they murdered quite a
and now
lot of
they'll
British
be,
people as
laid
well.
to
When it
rest.
was at the
The
King
family's
David Hotel they blew up in
at least
fucking
that they're back
in Egypt.
and can be laid to rest in Israel. But also it has triggered a new wave of anger by the families of the hostages that, you know, every day that goes by endangers not only the lives of the hostages, but makes it even more remote for those who've already been killed, that their bodies will be successfully brought back to Israel. These 5, in that case, they were considered, you know, among, if we can say, the more fortunate ones, that at least their bodies were recovered. So there'll be funerals today.
I know 55 that thing in front of the camera. What the fuck was that?
What has been an
Surely you got Birmingham are only a small club. Their
terrible
fucking shit
and
gets
painful journey
televised.
since October
So what
7th.
camera were they using?
Jordana Miller reporting there
It
from
can't be the camera they usually use
least
because
257 people
it's
have
just
been killed
unacceptable.
following
But I hear
landslides
you
in
mate,
southern
that hang in front of
Ethiopia.
the camera on
Volunteers
last night's stream
continue
was
to
a
dig
pain in
through
the
the
arse,
mud
man.
in the hopes of finding survivors. According to UN agencies, around 14,000 people have been displaced, and emergency workers are scrambling to rush aid into that remote mountainous area. There is a risk of further landslides hitting the region, with Ethiopia increasingly prone to climate disasters. Typhoon Gaimi is moving towards southern China now. This after it killed at least 2 people in Taiwan. 9 sailors are missing after a cargo ship sank in stormy weather. Authorities in Taiwan closed schools and offices after the deadliest typhoon to hit the island.
It does bamboozle you how those big massive ships get to... Did you see get took down.
Seeking higher
even in
ground wherever you
crazy
can. From animals to
even in
moped
crazy
riders
weather.
who aren't wary of being electrocuted, the residents of Kaohsiung in Taiwan are waiting for the waters to
I don't know if you've seen the footage or the
Typhoon Gaimi.
I think
The
it was
water
a
level is coming
humpback
down.
whale.
It's draining
I
out
think
into
it
the
was
pond in
coming
front
out
there.
the water. Now, I don't know if the whale was doing it deliberately or not, but it capsized a kind of sailing boat, rowing boat.
The roof fell in and the pipes burst. I'm on the verge of crying now. I'm going to have to spend a lot of money to rebuild, and I'm afraid the roof debris will fall and hit someone.
The strongest typhoon to hit Taiwan in 8 years, Gaimi caused extreme flooding in low-lying areas, as well as landslides and damage to homes across the island. It temporarily cut power to 500,000 people, with workers setting out to cut fallen trees and evacuate stranded residents. The extreme weather system also sank a tanker off the coast. Schools were closed for 2 consecutive days, as were offices and financial markets. Authorities have urged residents to stay at home.
Oh, right, buddy, I know what you're... Well, I now know what you're talking about because I'm looking at the
its extreme
Wikipedia
weather
page.
caused damages
It
and
was
killed
an
dozens in the
incident that took place
Philippines.
in Mandate,
Now
Palestine
that it's
in
made
July.
landfall, the
The
storm
Jewish
is expected to lose
insurgency
some
in
intensity
Palestine.
as it travels north across mainland China.
A Jewish
Now,
group
while the Summer
kidnapped 2
Games
British
have yet to
Army
get underway,
intelligence
France
corps.
has been provisionally picked to host the Winter Olympics in 2030.
With the death
The
sentence
bid was
passed
accepted
on
after
3
President Macron made his pitch, but there are conditions which need to be signed off on by whoever is poised to become this country's next prime minister.
Prison break. There was a street
The
named
opening ceremony
Acre.
for this year's Olympics in Paris
Yeah,
has yet
near
to
where I
take
grew up.
place, but France is already making more plans for 6 years' time, as it has been provisionally chosen to host the 2030 Winter Olympics and Paralympics.
The International Olympic Committee is honored to announce that the 26th
just got up
Winter
these speeds
Olympics
with
2030
the details
have
of
been
that, what they
awarded
saw.
to the French Alps.
Aye. See the
An
fucked up
announcement
thing
which
as
did
well,
not come
man.
as a surprise, as in November, the International Olympic Committee had
Some
already
people are of the
supported France's
opinion
bid to
that
host the Games
the Jewish
over those of
groups that
Switzerland
were,
and Sweden.
that were doing all that kind
Emmanuel
of shit were
Macron
given the
welcomed
green
the
light
news.
by certain elements of the Brits and the
I would like to pay
Americans.
tribute to
and
the
the
great
West,
professionalism of
basically.
the teams, Mr. General Director,
go and
to
do
their
what
high
they had to
standards, and
get
to what
done.
has been done to help us improve this bid. I know how attentive you are and will continue to improve things in the weeks and months to come right through to 2030.
Now, the IOC says France must provide key financial
Jews in
guarantees in the months
retaliation
ahead.
to the
If it
Brits
fulfills these,
taking
it
some
will be the
Jewish
country's
people
fourth time
kidnapped.
to host the
Didn't
Winter
it
Games.
was Jews,
That's
a Jewish
it for
group,
Paris Direct. Thank you very much for watching.
kidnapping Brits and then hung them in retaliation for the Brits. I think they jailed some Jewish people. There's the Wikipedia page for it, mate. Right, so let's see what the Krauts are saying.
Abortion laws in Europe. Yet the country is divided about the announced story.
Biden bowed.
Countdown and everything.
This is DW News live from Berlin. Joe Biden bows out with an address from the Oval Office.
So I decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation.
The US president makes way for his vice president after weeks of pressure and questions.
Now, if
about
that
his
army
health.
dude getting stabbed
Also
up
coming
had
up.
anything to do with terrorism, all these mobs would
Benjamin
be all over
Netanyahu
it.
tells a joint session of the US Congress that Israel and America must stand together. The Israeli leader sought to bolster support for the war against Hamas, but outside, protesters demanding an end to the fighting faced off with police. And climate protesters closed down Germany's Frankfurt airport. Activists glued themselves to the tarmac and temporarily halt flights. We bring you an update.
What was the sentence they fucking gave to those Just Oil people, man? Was it like 5 years or something? boycott, man. What? Yeah,
I'm
man, let the
Benny,
planet
welcome.
burn. I'm not going to
US
spend
President Joe Biden
5
has
years
given
in
a
jail.
rare Oval Office address last night to explain to the American people why he has stepped aside for Kamala Harris in the presidential election race. His speech came after weeks of pressure and doubts over his capacity to run again for the presidency.
Back in front of the cameras for the first time since bowing out of the race to be re-elected, Joe Biden laid out the reasons for his decision.
You know, in recent weeks, it's become clear to me that I need to unite my party in this critical endeavor. I believe my record as president, my leadership in the world, my vision for America's future, all merited a second term. But nothing can come in the way of saving our democracy. That includes personal ambition. So I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation. That's the best way to unite our nation.
Pressure on Biden to step aside had been growing since what many Democrats felt was a disastrous debate performance against Republican nominee Donald Trump in June. In the days and weeks that followed, very public gaffes by Biden, including calling President Zelensky of Ukraine President Putin, led to more calls for him to bow out of the race. Attempts by Biden and his staff to allay fears about his age and cognitive ability did little to quell the calls for a new Democratic candidate. And now that he's out of the race, Biden made it clear who he wants to see winning the White House in November.
In just a few months, the American people will choose the course of America's future. I made my choice. I've made my views known. I would like to thank our great
put it
Vice
through the
President Kamala
letterbox
Harris.
because you need to be over 18 to
She's
buy a fucking
experienced,
Swiss
she's
Army
tough,
knife
she's
nowadays.
capable.
I need to
She's been
fucking
an
wait
incredible
until
partner
these
to me
bastards come,
and a
man.
leader for our country.
One of several important
See you
endorsements
later,
for Kamala
55,
Harris.
my man.
The Vice President is already busy campaigning to win the
sniffer.
presidency, despite having not
Heck, if
yet
this is to
officially
South
been named
Africa,
the Democratic nominee. The party's convention is expected to decide that next month.
Tarmac melts.
Brandon Bourne is an expert in U.S. international relations with the Bertelsmann Foundation. I asked him what President Biden wanted to achieve with his speech.
Well, first, I believe it was an historic speech for an historic moment. While watching it, I was reminded of Lyndon B.
Europe
Johnson's
program,
1968 speech when he decided not to
foundation.
run for re-election amidst the turmoil of that year. I think
NGO.
Biden's aims were multiple. I think on the one hand, he used it to reflect, to cement his administration's legacy. He highlighted a number of domestic and foreign policy achievements. He also used it to outline his goals for the rest of his term as president. He used it, of course, also to justify
Denny, let's just take a look at the betting. Who's got the boost on that? Robert Jenick. So it says, is that a 3-horse race at the moment? James I don't know any of them. None of them. That generic, because I seen him this morning, that's about it. But a couple of years I'd have forgot that. But let's have a wee look at the US election. Right, so they don't really have an outright winner. As of yet, am I tripping? Nah, they don't. Just different areas. But presidential election, right, there we go. So Trump's still odds on. He's still head of the running. Michelle Obama's still a wee outside bet, by the way. Because technically she could still run. I know it's looking more and more unlikely. Kamala Harris is 2.5 to 1. Trump's under 2s. Now, what I noticed is, there's my Trump bet. Oh, it's went back up. Right. This is a £5 free bet I put on Trump fucking last September. Months ago. Last September. Nearly a year ago. I got just under 4s on him. But I had my cash out up to 570. Now, to get a cash out on a free bet is well, I say it's unheard of. It's obviously heard of. It's happening here. But it just shows you how much his odds have dropped. As I said, look, I got just under 4s for him. He's now 1.5 to 1 odds on. Time will tell. Michelle Obama outside bets. I could cash them out, but I'm keeping them on, man, because I still think things can change. Hey, where was the Germans?
This justify his decision not to run for re-election with a look to Kamala Harris. But I think, as you heard in the clip just before, he used it to communicate a warning to the American public, a warning from his perspective about the future of democracy. He said, this November, Americans will go to the polls and make
decisions. Vote for me, not for anybody else, because
States,
voting in democracy is under threat.
And it is from his perspective, which is a democracy, not a campaign. So he was voting to state.
Joe Biden.
It doesn't matter what channel, it's all the same shit.
I think in a sick decision, the November 5th election.
US, where Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has addressed a joint session of Congress. He promised to continue the war against Hamas in Gaza and called on the United States to stand united with Israel. In his speech, he also defended his country's conduct of the war, which has left some 40,000 Palestinians dead. And as he made that speech in Congress, thousands of protesters gathered outside to demand an end to the conflict.
A standing ovation by US lawmakers for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
Now remember, they don't even call Israel a country.
In his address
it's a
to a
state.
joint session of Congress,
Is it the
Netanyahu
51st
defended
seat
his
or the
country's
52nd
for
state?
US support.
The job for
of protest.
it's
the same stuff in it.
women
Just
Visit is due
7 Israeli settlers in the occupying
on Thursday.
This is some
quick
news.
look now at some other stories making news around the world. Australia says it is sanctioning 7 Israeli settlers in the occupied West Bank because of their involvement in violent attacks against Palestinians. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese says settlements in the West Bank are an impediment to a two-state solution. The EU and the US have already sanctioned some Israeli settlers. 733 million people around the world are still facing chronic hunger, with no improvement since the previous year. That's according to the latest
people
annual
still
report
think
from the
Michelle
UN's Food
Obama's
and
a dude,
Agriculture
man.
Agency. This amounts to 1 in every
It's like the
11 people in the
demonisation
world,
of
with
Meghan
Africa
Markle
being
right
worst
now,
affected.
man. There's people out there with a dog in the fight to go
Wildfires
after
have hit
Obama,
Canada's British
Barack,
Columbia
and go
Alberta
after
provinces. Authorities have ordered
Prince Harry.
evacuations.
So
The
they
flames
go
are
after
also
their
threatening
missuses.
the popular Jasper National Park in Alberta.
I mean, like,
With around
it's
600
an
fires
easy way to
already
get to
recorded
somebody,
in the
isn't it?
region, there are
Somebody goes
worries
after
that
your
Canada
missus,
could
man.
see another brutal wildfire season like last year.
Fuck.
Germany's Frankfurt
251
Airport
in
has resumed
2016,
operations after it temporarily suspended flights.
Well, buddy, what I'm going to do, man, is I might do it today if I can remember. I forgot yesterday. I'm going to go into the bookies and see what odds they'll give me for Nigel Farage for 2029. I can't find it online anywhere. So I'll need to go and into the bookies and see if they'll give me a price.
Due to a climate protest, several activists reportedly broke through a fence overnight and glued themselves to the tarmac. Police have now detained 8 people. The group Last Generation posted photos of a protester on X. The sign reading,
Looks
"Oil
like just
is."
oil. And that same colour, innit? Just
DW
oil's the
reporter
orange
Akanksha
shit.
Saxena is at Frankfurt Airport following the story for us. Akanksha, what's the latest? Has normal service...
Pete, the power of the internet, mate. Like, the power of the internet had a lot of people more interested in American politics than British. That was definitely part of the penny dropping for me when I was an Alex Jones fan, or a regular watcher at the very least. And I would watch his stuff and I would realise I actually now know more about technically how the inner workings of the American political system works more than the UK. And I was like, right, hold on, there's something no right there. Also, as well, when I started getting interested in guns and shit, you know, like, oh, I know the difference between an AR-15 and an automatic and semi-automatic and all that shit. I'm like, what the fuck, I'm staying in the UK? What the fuck do I give a flying fuck about that shit for? Because a Fat Man Jones getting inside my nut. Then I found out Kev Faker was drinking the tangy tangerine. It's just called Barocca.
It's resumed.
In fact, I've got tangy tangerine. It's a cheap one off Amazon.
Yes, they were temporarily suspended. The flights were temporarily suspended today morning. Remember, this is Germany's busiest airport. Around 140 flights were cancelled,
I've
which
been
means
taking
about
Barocca
10%
every
of
day,
the
more or less,
air traffic came to a
since I was
grinding
about
halt.
21.
But now behind
And
me,
it was
you can see
initially
they have
given to me as
they
a
have
hangover
resumed, the
cure.
flights have resumed, operations have partially resumed
You know,
on
but it's
all the 4
basically
runways
just a
since
fucking
morning
barrage
now.
of fucking
But
vitamin
there's a lot of
minerals that
chaos
are
and
meant to give you energy.
confusion. A lot of flights that were cancelled. People are trying to rebook
But Alex Jones put
flights,
fucking tangy
and
tangerine
they
on
are,
it and
you
fucking
can see
hiked
still
up the
behind
price
me
about
long
4
queues.
times and it
So
told you
yes,
how bad everything was and
the
sold you
flights
it.
have now resumed, but many were cancelled today morning because of the protests.
You spoke
to
to
get an
passengers
Indian
at the
reporter
airport. Do
on
they
a
support
German
this
news
kind of
outlet
protest?
in Frankfurt. Fuck's sake.
Most of the people that I was talking to earlier, they were really angry with the protest because their plans have been disrupted. This is school holidays in Germany at the moment, and many people had plans to go to meet their families. So some of those cancellations affected their travel plans. So people were largely very angry and frustrated. But some of the people I spoke to who have
That's
now
right, Benny.
rebooked
You'll
to other flights have
be
told
able to read the old
that they do
German.
agree with the demands of the protesters. They just do not agree with the way this was employed.
I wonder if that group is linked to Just Oil though, because they seem to have the same colour scheme.
You know, the
Or am I
last
tripping?
generation group demanding German government to pursue a global agreement to exit oil, gas and coal by 2030, but they are not happy with
Here,
the
I'll
way
tell
it's
you the
being
power
done
of the
because,
internet, right?
it affects their travel plans.
The power
it
of
affects,
TV, just the power
you
of
know,
suggestion.
their finances. It affects their travel. You know, their they have to rebook.
I've
So this
ordered.
disrupts their lives.
We'll leave it there.
This
for
is
the moment.
ridiculous,
DW
right?
reporter Akansha
I've ordered
Saxena
off of
in
Amazon
Frankfurt. Thanks so much.
Slim Jims. Because I was watching fucking
Germany's
shit on
Interior Minister
Netflix,
Nancy
The Big
Faeser
Bang
has
Theory, and they
called
were
the
constantly going
demonstration,
on about
quote,
Slim Jims.
dangerous,
Like,
dumb,
what the fuck
and
are these
criminal
things?
on
And I
X.
googled it and
I asked
kind
Ina
of like a
Jönsson
pepperami, but
from
made
the
out of
activist group
mechanically
Last
recovered
Generation
chicken.
whether Faeser was right.
Sounds so brilliant.
Yeah, that's what
I
she
ordered
called
some
it. I would
off of Amazon
call
because I
the
wanted to
real
try them.
dangerous situation and the real criminals,
Power
our
of the
governments,
internet.
who are burning more fossil fuels, who are investing in fossil fuel infrastructure and making war.
Frankfurt Airport.
And then look at all the technological.
A traditional warehouse that stores his produce for about 6 months a year.
That they're getting, and then sort of maybe just take the
Again, so much in India, this fucking... Well, India is a big, massive player on the world scene nowadays. Now, let's go and get the top of our news. From the Yankee Doodle Dandies, then I'm out of
but
here.
they have to be given a good plan. They have to have the support and the
That's a
resources that they
podcast
need.
I
And
got
clearly,
heard in
what we
before.
see that happened in Butler, Pennsylvania, was a failure of the plan to identify, obviously, a place where there would have been direct line of sight, and you had a deranged person who took advantage of that. We've got to make sure that we know where the breakdown occurred in the planning, because these events are planned weeks in advance. The security is scouted out.
It's not figuring out where the breakdown was. It's figuring out whether the breakdown was deliberate or not, whether they knew this was going to happen and they let it fucking happen. Because that is a possibility with the Trump derangement syndrome. No matter how much you hate Trump or fucking think he's an arsehole and all that, surely people don't want him dead. But there are some people out there that want him dead. So it is no surprise.
Do you think the Secret Service was prepared? And I ask you that because many of the videos that we've seen, they honestly look frazzled, especially as we saw them trying to put the former president into the vehicle. You saw one of the women trying to put her gun in a holster, and she couldn't even find the holster at that time. Obviously, I'm sure a lot going on. It would kind of throw you off your game. But as you just so eloquently put it, you kind of can't be thrown off when you hold this high regard.
Does that mean you're an Ulster Scot, Derry?
Well, I'm not going to make too much of that. I look at the fact that it took a mere, second or so for those Secret Service agents to jump on top of the president, to use themselves as human shields to protect President Trump. They did what their training was, what they're trained to do, which is to react quickly. And once you get him covered, and as you are trying to evacuate, having spent so much time in that bubble with those brave men and women, they don't know what the situation is. We know now there was a single shooter. They don't know that in that moment. They are scanning the crowd. They are looking. They're trying to check every treetop, every rooftop, every person that is in basically eye shot of the president to see, could they be also a threat? And so, they're looking at a lot of things all at the same time. Their goal, get him into that protective vehicle, get him protected, get him to, obviously, medical attention, while at the same time wondering, where's the next attack going to come from? So, again, I think it's more about preparedness. I think their reaction times and their reaction, that training kicks in, and they did their jobs. They got him out of there, and thank, obviously, the good Lord for all of that.
Absolutely, and Mark, you raise a great point, and that's what many of the viewers want to know. Are the Secret Service members prepared for a potential next attack? We are learning more with the investigation that the shooter wasn't just Googling
Alex
to see about former President Trump's campaign. He was Googling several legislators and several current President Joe Biden, former President Obama, just Googling different people. So knowing that this could potentially happen again, what needs to happen so that the preparation and planning, as you mentioned, isn't undercut in any way?
Well, I think the big question we have to ask for the United States Secret Service is, do they have the resources that they need? And I know that when we get into campaign years, it stretches the limits of their available resources, because not only do you have a sitting president and vice president and their families who are out there campaigning for re-election or doing their official travel, you also have candidates for office. And now you have, obviously, a vice presidential candidate. And you have the former presidents, obviously, who are still with us. So their resources get taxed greatly as all of these candidates spread out across the country, multiple events, multiple venues. We see it. We see it on television every day that the president's in 2 states today. The vice presidential candidate's in a couple of states today. That all drains the resources of the United States Secret Service. So I think we have to have a serious discussion of, what do we have to do to make sure that we don't stretch resources, where we pull resources from one candidate or office holder to protect another. They should all be protected at all times.
Mark, with your training and expertise, I want to ask you, one thing that also came out of this investigation was the lack of communication with local law enforcement. It was pretty much a blame game when things happen. Oh, I thought you were going to check this area. No, I thought you were going to check this area. How is it supposed to happen? Because as you mentioned, these campaigns rally will continue as we...
Okay, that's 12 bells I'm getting out of here. So what's happening today? Biden steps down. The dude that stabbed up the soldier has been arrested. Nobody's talking about terror shit apart from the cult of Tommy Robinson and other conspirator people online. The guy getting kicked in the head in Manchester Airport. And you need to go to Al Jazeera and Press TV to even hear them talk about Gaza. Otherwise, they'll just show you nut job up at Congress, and they'll maybe say the word Gaza, but they won't address the scores on the doors and the ongoing genocide, or the International Criminal Court of Justice, or whatever it's called, coming out and saying genocide. Anyway, you're going to do a live chat again, Craig. Aye, mate, I just need the time and the fucking motivation to do it. You know what I mean? I'm happy to do this in the morning and a few wee live streams and all that. But see, once I've been to the gym, had a couple of pints, had a smoke and something to eat. The reason I managed to get up at a decent hour this morning, yesterday, this is actually amazing for me. 2 pints and 2 vapes all day, and then I was in my bed, man. Did a big massive bowl of pasta, and that's me in a good day. But I'm going to do another Daily PoliTITS tomorrow, buddy. I should be in my bed at a good time tonight, I hope. And depending on what's happening Saturday, buddy, I'll give Crossman and whatnot a shout, and we'll get a wee live chittity chat on the go, man. Because they are good fun and all that. It's just finding the time to do it, you know. Or the time and motivation. I will do, mate, next time, man. Definitely, I'll give you a wee shout up. I was yesterday, the day before, Ramblings of an Irishman dude sent me a wee comment and stuff. So I need to, I'll shoot a wee message off to Crossman and stuff and get something together. But nowadays, mate, I don't need it. I only need half an excuse to get the fuck away from the internet and get myself into a boozer, man. And it's not even so much for the drink, it's for fucking being able to talk to people without getting dragged into this shite. Do you know what I mean? It's really, really fucking... It's a relief. You know, there's something to be said about being fucking half naked in a steam room or a sauna with predominantly men talking pish. It's brilliant fun, man. It's absolutely brilliant fun. So people that did watch, stick a wee thumbs up. Stay tuned. I will try and do... I should be doing a Daily PoliTITS tomorrow. I'm going to try and do them more regularly. It really is just... it's bad for the psyche, exposing yourself to the constant doom and gloom on a daily basis. It's just no good. You'll walk outside your front door and you'll take that shit with you rather than leaving it behind at your fucking windy licking device of the internet, you know. So Hashtag, what do you grow at your allotment, mate? I know you said it was just the basics and stuff, man, but that's... I mean, I would love to grow my own totties. I love baked potatoes, man. Baked potatoes are fucking immense. And like the variety of potatoes you can get are fucking phenomenal, man. I think well, I'm stabbing in the dark here as if I know, right? But I think there's over like 100 different varieties of potatoes and stuff, man. It'd be great to experiment with that. Me, I love my tomatoes. I'd love to grow cherry tomatoes, but you'd need a wee... What do you call those fucking dome things? We've not got the weather for it up here. You need something to keep the frost off, man. So Hashtag, Pete, Denny, Roberto. Thanks everybody for tuning in. 55 was in earlier as well, and OG Skywatch, I think he had to go to his bed, and then KY Dish was in earlier as well. So thanks everybody, have a nice afternoon, get away from the news, get away from the internet, take a leaf out of hashtags, go down the allotment, go and grow something, man. Go to a gym, go for a walk, go to McDonald's, do anything. Aye, mate, I know you can grow tomatoes indoors. There's a brilliant wee thing you get, right? I seen it on the Gadget Show years ago. It's called the Aero Garden. And it's basically plug into the wall, you get these wee pods, put it in, and boom shakalaka, you're growing them. You can do peppers, I'm pretty sure you could do tomatoes and all that under it. And it's like a wee self-contained thing with a light, as you said. But again, make money in it. Money, what's cheaper, growing your own tomatoes? I bet you they taste a lot better though. Or a polytunnel, that's what I was looking for. You need some sort of wee polytunnel. I grow them under the veranda. Oh, good stuff, mate. I suppose you could grow them next to a window if you had the right positioning for sunlight and all that, you know. I think it's just the cold snaps during the night that fuck up your tomatoes. You know, they don't do well with frost, and even during the summer, typically in Britain, the temperatures can drop so low that you probably wouldn't get away with tomatoes. But thanks for tuning in, everybody. Hashtag. Enjoy your allotment, mate. It sounds like great fun, buddy. And Denny, have a nice one, mate. I'll give you a shout next time I'm doing a wee live chat. And check in tomorrow, see if I'm doing a wee Daily PoliTITS. So if you like politics or are sick of the tits, then tune in for my Daily PoliTITS. Get it? Got it? Good. Catchies. Have a nice day, y'all.
Clips. And remember, citizens, always subscribe. Hit the notification bell as well. And $19.95 plus shipping and handling will keep you out of hell.